just kind of the backstory is had dropped off a couple other guys, and they were just kind of going out in the woods. And I was like, well, I got nothing to do. I'm gonna do a little bit of road work. So I'm gonna go and check out a couple of these roads that we've been on before and see if there's anything happening, because you can only walk so far today, but the truck can get you and see where there's extra tracks going across. And of course, there's where we hunt where there's active logging. So I think I was waiting in the middle of the road for like a half hour, 45 minutes. So I'm just waiting, and I went down another road, talked to the forester, one of my buddies, Sam, that I went to school with, and he was just talking about kind of all the stuff that he had going on, and by then I was able to kind of get my way, because where we know there's been deer, where we know there's been some older cuts, and of course we go and we target the food, basically is what we end up doing. Basically went out and I found a couple goat tracks, no buck tracks. There was nothing big, and it's like, well, I want to be standing on deer all the time. So basically, I'm just kind of lollygagging up through the woods. There's about a half inch of fresh snow, and maybe about an inch or two of older snow. And I ended up just following that track a little bit, and they brought me to the buck track. And this buck track it's a smaller kind of subdominant male, so he was kind of sticking to his own spot, and he's been a couple times back and forth on this little trail. So I was like, I don't know if he's this way, I don't know if he's that way, but I'm here, and I might as well be on tough tracks, because this is basically the beginning of the rut. So you never know. The bucks are just kind of running around doing their thing, because not a lot of does are ready to go.
So he's going to try and start in where you can stop him as he plays it.
Yep.
And I just kind of want to this is a chance where if you've seen the video and you've watched how this went, it also gives you a chance for him to interject in what went on. See, a lot of times when you're filming stuff, you're not seeing the whole hunt. You're not seeing everything that went on. And sometimes those things are important, and there's a lot of little small things here that we can share with you that like everybody else may not be getting when they just watch the video itself. But there's a lot of part of this that could apply for you. Because the quarter mile from the road, most people can make it a quarter mile out into the woods. So.
I basically started at 10 of 10 or so, and so it was 10 o'clock when I basically got into the woods.
Which means you can get out of bed late.
I got out of the woods really late, but it doesn't really matter, because all the days that I get out in the woods late, something ends up happening, because I'm not in a hurry. And I ended up walking maybe a quarter mile, and I got onto his tracks, and now I'm just kind of going nice and slow and nice and easy. Went on his track for maybe a quarter mile, so I've been a whole entire distance of about a half mile, and there's the deer. And so I didn't have to go very far. I didn't go up any steep mountainous places or anything like that. I'm just on logging roads. And the deer are all going on these nice places that are just perfect. And I was like, oh, this is just perfect.
Well, they're skid trails, really.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, little logging roads, but it's all open. It's not like I'm getting whipped in the face or anything like that. I'm not going to get a really good view of all the mountains on the next ridge over. So it's not like it's like I was in any difficult spot or anything like that. There's been other times like Jimmy Dad with Mr. Rogers this year they were in some bad stuff. And so if you want to play. We have internet down here?
Yep.
You know, Norfield's got the fastest internet in the world. I don't know if you guys know the actual statistics.
TDS.
So when you're aging cuts, what age cuts are you looking for?
So basically, I'm looking at the brows, and I'm looking at basically, because the deer's reach, basically, if you took that buck and put him on the ground, his nose is about this high. So I'm looking for brows from this high down, basically. So right where the deer blend in, basically from about chest height down. You want 4 foot tall growth. As soon as you start getting stuff that's over that, then now the deer aren't reindeer, so they can't fly. And all the buds that they're kind of eating are going to be above their reach. So we're looking for probably like 3 to 5 year old cuts, basically, is what you're going to be looking for. Because after the first 2 or 3 years, that's when you start to get growth, and then it's all accelerated growth, and it's good for about 2 or 3 years, and then it's at their reach. So by 10, 15 year old cuts are too old, 2 to 3 year old cuts are just getting into it, basically. But it all depends on site, depends on conditions, when they log it, all that kind of thing.
Also, also too grass, like if there's tons and tons of that ground, like swale grass, that will keep the tree browse down some. The deer love to be in it.
Yep.
You've got a couple of deer in that swale grass, but
Yep.
the browse is usually lower, and like there's not as much feed in it.
No, you want when the cuts have like a little red hue to them. That's what you're looking for. Yep.
Go ahead, Taylor.
There's been a sandbox thing through here multiple times. There's a lot of old ones, but then there's a couple of ones that are getting newer. This guy is relatively fresh right now. He's really live.
So if you just kind of want to, when it gets up to where you can see, just pause it there.
Right, so you can see the cut. See, there's a lot of raspberry bushes, a lot of the young red maple whips.
So basically, this is kind of towards the top of the cut. So basically, the bottom of the cut, the deer, there was some does. I just saw a doe. They ended up leading me to his track. He went and back and forth on this little skid trail. So this is kind of where he's always kind of been hanging out. And we're getting towards the top of the cut. The top of the cut is where they did a little bit of selection here and there, but they didn't do like a clear cut. So there's some bigger trees, some little trees, and this is where it kind of gets a little more bony, so where the machinery can't really get to. This is on top of that kind of cut.
Any cuts with lots of rocks in them, you can see how the rocks are starting, everywhere there. The rock will make the soil thinner, and you'll have different trees. And especially as you get higher up, there's hardly any soil at all, and that's where you'll get a lot of evergreens. And then down on the edges, wherever those shelves are, you'll have a little bit more hardwood. And the machinery, can work around. It's amazing how much you go on the forest and what is growing there, but you also go on what people have done when they cut and how that cutting, and because cutting is a huge deal in Maine, but when you get back here, it can be even more because there's so little of it. Right? If you get some cutting back in Vermont, it's a big deal because it's a magnet for a whole big area because everything wants to come to it.
Go ahead, Mike.
Listen.
Go ahead and pause. So basically, it's no hurry. Don't hurry. All the deer that we've hurried on, we've never got them. All the deer that you take your time, you go slow, you say, I have all the time there is to get this deer. The deer is not very far away. It's not going anywhere. And of course, by looking at a couple of the newer tracks, I can tell speed because on average, a deer's stride is about the same length as my step. And as soon as the deer is taking bigger steps, as soon as I have to take bigger steps, now I know that in order for me to maintain that speed, I have to be a little quicker. With this one, I can see what the tracks are doing. I can see what he's kind of been doing from however long he's been kind of walking on this snow here. And I knew that he's been here and he's going to come through here eventually, basically. So go ahead and
I'm catching pretty well. It's just a matter of seeing him, a matter of being able to catch him before he's precisely.
so we like to walk and call at the same exact time too, because you're making movement in it. Go ahead, pause, Ernie. So basically, I'm walking up this little steep bank. You can see that the trees have changed here. We've gone up the hill a little bit, and he kind of went through this really thick stuff, and then it just turned into greenery where the cuts didn't happen. So this is an older forest type, and he was up there. I'm going up the hill, and I just hear one little stick like this, and I just kind of sit back and I look, and I can see him coming, and that's why I could see him coming a long ways before this. But I had time to get my phone out because I just literally grabbed my phone. I got it going, got it playing, and I'm holding it up in my hand on my pump while this is happening right now. And if you look, go ahead and pause. Go ahead, play it for a little bit. He's going to be right up where my rifle's pointed.
Yeah, right up in here.
And when I see him, I'll go ahead and pause.
You get one of those cameras right on your barrel.
Yeah.
That would be
Ready.
fun though.
Set.
And you just see his legs there, and he's coming.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Yeah.
And he's walking nice and easy,
Oh, yeah.
and he's coming.
Yeah.
And see, he stops, he's listening for cases.
and he just stopped perfectly. So basically, he's coming, and I'm just, basically, I kind of predicted where he's gonna stop, where I would think he would stop, and just get ready and get everything all set up so that way when the time comes, if I have to move a little bit, I don't wanna have to move much, because as soon as he stops, he's got all of his senses, and he's got all of his tools ready to be used at all the time. So he's got his ears, he's got his eyes, he's got his nose, and if I move a little bit, that's more for him to see it, because they see black and white, so they see movement really, really well. We see color really, really well. So basically, if you want to go ahead and play, I just shot, and then of course the recoil, my phone comes out of my hand, and I gotta run my pump.
Falls in the snow.
It's in the snow, exactly.
Yeah, he's got a pump action Remington, so 7 mm away.
This is kind of key time to assess the situation, take it easy, but also don't go too quickly into that, because the deer didn't go very far at all, and if the deer was still living, I could push him really easily.
Whenever you're tracking, going up to the deer, hunt it. Whenever you're following a blood trail, hunt it. Don't just march along it thinking he's dead. Hunt the whole thing all the time.
And there's a lot of time that has gone by through here. I went really slow and just watched and listened for quite some time too. Yeah. And I'm calling it, pretending to be a deer, so that way he doesn't automatically just run away from you.
He came to him expecting a deer. If you continue calling like a deer, it's not going to hurt a thing, right? If it stalls him for even a second more, if you need it, it could buy you some time.
Yeah.
You did that here good.
Oh yeah, hit him good. Yeah.
There he is. Oh my God, there he is.
Let's see the buncher. You see a strip right there where the buncher opened the woods up.
Oh
You're
my
going to want
God.
to run up and down those.
There's a lot of pause right there.
There.
And deer are edge creatures. They're on the edge. You can see I didn't have to go very far. I shot, he was basically here to the dumpster away from me tops, so he's 25 yards away from me tops. So I've only gone probably at that distance as well into the woods, and I'm already on the edge. So I didn't have to go very far from the cut, because the deer aren't going to go very far away from their food source. There's no reason for them to expend a lot of energy, especially pre-rut. He's just kind of waiting for the does. This is kind of where the does are hanging around, and you can see that if you look at right here, you can see that those are a couple of his old tracks, because he went up these skid trails, and so right where the deer tracks have been, the deer are always going to kind of be right there. And when you're going to be approaching the deer, I'm not where his hoofs are, so if he's still alive or anything like that, he can't kick me, because if you're in the big woods, if you need to walk out of the woods, and you end up getting hurt just because you got a deer, that's not good.
Because now they gotta drag your deer and you out of the way.
That's right. So approaching the deer safely, calmly, and just in case, because if all of a sudden he comes right alive when I didn't expect him to come alive, you want to be safe, because it's still a while in.
Here he is, guys. Oh, look at him. Oh. There you guys go. Okay. Just go ahead
So go ahead, pause it. And I'm feeling there's a lot of emotion that happens when you shoot a deer, especially if you've never shot a deer. I've gotten a whole bunch by now. I don't even know how many right now. We've gotten a lot of deer, and of course, there's always this emotion that happens as well. I'm really happy, but I'm also really sad at the same time. You can kind of hear that. That's the reason why the phone is shaking so much, because I'm really excited, but I'm also sort of sad too, because this is life and death. You're taking something, and it's coming to me, and you're taking something, and it's not something that you take really lightly, because this is definitely a spiritual thing for us as well. So now I'm going to be pulling him out and seeing what he's like, seeing what he's got for headgear basically. But this is also, we want to make sure that he's dead. So if you were to grab that and he's still alive, this is where it's not going to feel too good. But go ahead.
Okay, guys, you ready? Got your big 4-pointer. Woo-hoo! Look at that butt. Awesome. Rotation is all day long. I'm really glad you guys could be with me. It was a lot of fun. I'm going to take my piece of it. See if we get the boys in the meeting.
Now, a big part of this hunt that makes it so relevant to like everyone is that this is a long ridge where he shot this deer. It must be what? It's a
4
dead
miles.
end road that's
It's
4.5 miles
right,
long.
4 miles out basically. I was almost at the end of it basically.
Yeah.
And it's a ridge that's at least 4 miles long.
Right, and
Yep.
it kind of runs on an angle, north-south, a little bit northeast, southwest, and we always drive the road out through to the end of the road and check for tracks. And as we drive out that, we're keeping track of every deer that crossed the road. I like to know there's 2 does went down here, and then drive a little farther, and oh, a smaller buck went through here 2 days ago. And then go a little farther, and oh, the same looks like maybe smaller buck's gone back down across, you know? And where it is out that road, because we're not spending any amount of time up there scouting. Now, if you don't scout, it's gonna be tough to, you're gonna have to do it during the season. And that's what we do for the most part. So we'll, especially the second snow hits, or even if there isn't snow, we're driving that road and checking, like, when was the last time it rained? And if it rained 4 days ago, and now we start looking at all the tracks that are in that dirt road and that brand new dirt that washed through from the rain, in the last 4 days, how much traffic has crossed this road? We're making mental notes of what's going on the ground around us all the time. How many rigs have been pulling over and parking, and where they've all been parking. We're keeping as much track of other hunters as we are of the deer, and also to the moose, and what else is going on. How many coyotes have been using that road. So we'll assess a road and figure out what's going on, which direction most of the deer traffic seems to be going. If we don't find a buck, but we do find a whole bunch of does, is that good information? Absolutely, because pretty quick when the rut starts right in, that's going to be a popular spot with all the bucks, right? And because the deer are fairly sparse and we're just checking for where everything lives, we're trying to learn everything about that road, everything about that mountain, and then everything about around the access to the mountain all the way around. Now, say you're in Vermont and you have just 150 acres to hunt on here, and it's posted all the way around and you can't really do much. If it's me and I've got this section of land and I need to make the most of it, I'm probably not going to want to chase every deer off that 100 acres. I'm not going to want to do that. And I may have to go out and find out what's going on, but do it real gently. One of my favorite tricks to do, especially like on our own land, right here. And my land here is kind of shaped like this. And the wind comes from west to east most of the time. Here's the shop, right? And I need to hunt my 100 acres. And if it's posted around it, and I can't utilize it too much, but I want to apply some tracking skills for the day. Let's see what's going on today. We got some brand new snow today. Here's our property, and we're going to work it somehow. Most people don't walk their boundaries. I love to walk the boundaries during deer season while I've got the gun in my hand, because the rest of the time I don't ever do that. And the deer are probably all right on the boundaries, right? So I'll walk around and I'll start my circle around my own land. I'll do it on the downwind side. So I'm not spooking anything that's on my land. It's all I've got, right? I got to work with it. So I'll go around the outside of my land and work it. And if a couple of does, say, come off it, and then I go a little farther up, and there's a little bit of traffic this way, and I've got some traffic in a spot, I'm making a mental note. Now, one of the things about real-time scouting during hunting season is that it's relevant information today. Tons of people have trail cameras and everything, and it's great to know what deer exist and what areas they use in the summertime or whatever, but it can change completely when the rut starts going, or even just before the rut. So I'm making mental notes of what's going on. If there happens to be using an apple orchard that I've got, and all the traffic coming and going from that, even that sometimes changes a little bit from year to year, and it's good to know what's going on. If I take that on the outside and start swinging that and coming around, and if I, for some reason, got one on the inside here, now, because I know the terrain, and I know my woods, and I know where there's a patch of greenery real thick and a swamp right in the middle, right? And I know that's kind of headed that way. Well, I know I don't have to take that buck's track. If he's actually on my land and I get to hunt him, I've just figured out he's there, and I haven't disturbed anything yet, and it's relevant, like he came through last night. Now, it doesn't mean that he didn't keep right on trucking right off my land, but if he is there, I want to make the most use of it. So I'll swing out around nice and easy and say, oh, there's something in here, and check the freshness of it, match it to your tracks, and see just how good it looks, and then I'll continue on. If he comes out all of a sudden, it doesn't mean he didn't go out and come right back in over here, but it lets me know what's going on without disturbing it. And I'll work my way up through, and yep, he seems to be headed in there. Maybe he went up here and ate and then came back in here and laid down. I work my way out through here, and I know that there's a nice little spot for me to sneak in to that. So I'll forget tracking. As soon as I know he's in there, I'll continue paying attention, and now I'll just go ahead and hunt my land because I know it. You know, I know where I can see and I know where I can look. I've got a pretty good idea where they bed down. It's familiar to me. And you can use the tracking skills of what's going on to get you started. And then once I get in there and I haven't hit anything yet, or even if I come in on the downwind side and he's gone in, or he hasn't gone in, right? That's all important information to me, and I don't necessarily have to continue with him. But what I'm doing is making a circle and looking as if he came out or not. What I don't really want to do is get over here now, right? Because if he's in the middle and I come over here, he's just going to cross over me someplace and away he'll go, right? But at least I'm using that barnyard scenario that we have on one of our other videos where it's a big mess and I just circle the mess looking for something to come out. That is so good. It lets you know real time what's going on. If somebody else happened to come through my place and walk up on there and I come across and gee, somebody's been in here. Right? I can start, just using what's on the ground, it's like real-time tracking skills that you can apply, but you don't have to necessarily track right up to the deer and do it. Doesn't mean you can't just turn right in, take the track, and go right for it. You certainly can do that too. And you'll still be good because you're on the downwind side of things. The wind will play way more of a role on little tiny parcels of land where you have to hunt, and you want to do it carefully and slowly. Because the second you just run up there and bust him and he plows off, he's gone and you're done.
Wind is way more important when you're close to a deer. When you're really close to a deer, that's when it plays a huge role. When the deer is 3 miles away from you, the wind can be blowing any way it wants, and it's not going to change anything.
Just one of those calls or something.
You said you were calling as you were walking?
Yep. So we just use the throws. It doesn't have to sound perfect. It all has to sound. It doesn't even have to sound like a deer. The deer has to think that it was something that is like a deer. For them to say, what's that? Because of course, if they're coming to a call that doesn't sound quite right or whatever, they might be a little bit more cautious. But if you're just, and of course in the mornings I'm really good, but towards the afternoons, we're in the woods, we're clearing our throats all the time. And that's all that we end up doing. We don't have a grunt tubes or anything like that, just because it's another thing to carry. It's another thing to get all frozen up, right, and something like that. And it's working great because we also don't call a lot, especially if the deer is right there. We didn't call it all. But while you're walking, of course, if the deer is 200-300 yards away, he's not going to hear you grunt. And of course, if you use a grunt tube and you're really loud, like that, that's kind of a freak out mode for a lot of deer. Like with moose, if you go whoa, whoa, like that to a moose, when you're close to them, they automatically think, oh my God, this is a fight scenario. When animals are loud beside each other, that's bad. A lot of times moose, they have a lot of vibrations that they actually do that you can't even really hear, but they can feel that. So when you start to vocalize your calls really close to the animals, they automatically say that's not normal.
It's similar to when, you and I are having a conversation, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Instead of being like, hey, how's it going? Instantly you're like, what is this guy's freaking problem, right? And it's the same kind of intensity and the same kind of like vibe, when a dog's looking away from you, and you look at the dog, and then the thing just turns around and looks you dead in the eyes. It's the same thing, like the animals are super perceptive, and they feel a lot, and they're very aware of certain like tone and very like, So as soon as there's like a, whoa, they're like, this time go, that one's kind of crazy.
Casey, was that deer coming into that snort wheeze, or do you think he heard you?
I was grunting. I was mostly just grunting. The reason I just snort wheezed at him when he was kind of running away or something like that was just so that it would get his attention, and it's louder. He's making noise, and I can't grunt very loudly with my voice, but I can snort wheeze really loud. So it can be like, oh, what? And all I need to do is have him stop for a second, or at least change his mind just a little bit, so he doesn't maybe run quite as far. And basically, when same thing as you putting your hand to your ear, that's what deer have. And moose have two hands basically, so they can hear really, really good. So that's why that one little stick breaking sound is really, you might not think it's all that important to you, but of course to the deer, they don't have all this machinery that's killing their ears like we do.
If you watch any amount of deer being shot, especially like on YouTube or something, or even elk is another one where they'll call to the elk and he's coming and he's thinking there's elk over here, there's elk over here. Then boom, and the shot goes off and they call to him right away. He's thinking there's something there. We haven't gotten this on film yet, but I've had it happen like 6 times now. I call to the deer, he comes, I shoot, and then he runs right at me. He's thinking, something happened to me and I need to run, and there's a whole crowd of deer over here. I'm going to join them and we're all going to charge away. Now the best thing you can have happen is to shoot a deer and have him come closer. Just like, come here, come right over here, we'll give you another one, right? So that has worked so well, and it's a matter of time before we're going to get that on film again, where he comes to the call and then boom, and then come right at you even more. That's happened a bunch of times. Mr. T right here, that one came running right at me. I was here to the stove, literally. It was maybe the coyote I shot, and it came running right to me and got here to the stove, and I had time enough to open up the bolt and go boom right from the hip, and he went pow and landed right there. And it's quite a thing when a 220 great big bugger is like coming right at you, and he's thinking you're deer, and then other deer are safety. He wants to run to them, so that always works good. Casey's Ridge, now, we drive down it with the trucks, and we get to the end, and we drop him off, and he goes up in. We've already driven all the way around the entire ridge. There's a rig over here and another rig over here. This is a mile from here. This is probably a mile and a half over here. The whole thing's probably 5 miles long. Was there anybody else parked on the road while you were hunting?
There was one truck on the very, very end of it.
Right?
Actually, no, there was nobody.
Nobody.
So we turned around.
Casey literally gets over here. He's got the deer. He just finds some doe tracks first, right?
Yep. So there was basically drove all the way out, found one doe track going downhill, older one at the beginning of the road. Go out another 3 miles. Haven't seen a thing, and then probably 200 yards from the end. That's where my 2 does came up, brand new, came up right into the woods, right into the cut basically. I went up into the cut, and I think I coughed a little bit, and I looked up, and then there's a deer running away. I was like, what the hell? I've only been in the woods for maybe 10 minutes. And there was 2 does right there, bloop, 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 going away. And I was like, of course, they went north away from where the buck went. And I just kept following, and I kept following their tracks, saw what they were. They were 2 little does. They went up north, and I just kind of kept going through the cut, and then I just popped onto some more tracks.
Now the cuts are kind of shaped like this on the hill, where they go up to it. It gets bony at the top of it. There's bigger trees along the very top. And then there's a few of these thicker spots where it's a little tougher, and you have like 2 brooks, right?
Yep.
There's 2 brooks. So when he comes along and rides out through and gets out on a couple of doe tracks, most people wouldn't even do that, right? But we know this spot has usually quite a few buck in it, so it's worth a look. And you got melting snow. It's going bye-bye, kind of. It's going down.
Warmer.
Yep.
Maybe it might have snowed a little. Actually, no, it didn't even snow the night before. And it was just kind of a little crusty, but it was starting to warm up, so the crust was going away. So walking was nice. So it wasn't like it was loud walking or anything like that. It was just nice and quiet.
But the woods are quiet.
Right.
Right. Sometimes we'll talk about things being noisy or things being quiet. there's two of them. The snow can be noisy, and the woods can be quiet, so that they hear you like crazy every time you take a step. You know, Captain Crutch, right? You
Yep.
get a little bit of that.
Yep.
And then there's other times when the snow is quiet and the woods are noisy. The wind's blowing and all that kind of stuff goes on quite a bit too. But the main point is he's maybe a quarter mile from the road. And he's checked all the traffic. We've also gone all the way around. And if he gets up in here and he already has knowledge that that buck hasn't left that square, that he's in there somewhere, at least you're now hunting in a place where there's a deer. I want to be where there's something going on. It's got to be a deer around.
So
If
what
I'm
we're
not
doing is
seeing
we're
deer tracks,
shrinking the
not-
woods so that way it goes from 7 to 10,000 acres down to maybe 100 acres, because the tracking and just busting right into like his wood scenario where that little buck was in the little greenery, just busting into there, that's where things where a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of practice really have to come into play. And so what we're trying to do is basically shrink the size of the woods. That's why you do the road work. That's
This
why
one?
you do a lot of stuff a lot of pre-work basically is what ends up happening.
Adult with technology. Right.
Yeah,
Too old for
he's
that.
old guys in technology.
Yeah.
Not good at all. So we're just trying to eliminate as many spots. It's the same as Battleship. Has anybody ever played Battleship?
Sure.
Same exact thing. And so you're trying to eliminate where the possibilities of deer not being. So that way you say, I know he's not here. I know he's not here. I know he's not here. So then all you have left is places where that the deer might be. And so that's going to be basically. Of course, we had the advantage of this year having so much snow. So of course that automatically shrinks the size of the woods because you know exactly where they've been and where they are probably going to be going anyway. If you want to pick up.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Go ahead and raise your hand or.
And so basically, so now I got the deer. Now it's pretty emotional, and a lot of times, a lot of people don't end up seeing this. A lot of people don't end up like showing this, but this is what ends up happening. This is what happens to us basically when we're in the woods with deer.
To be able to experience this. It's such a great privilege to be out here. And I love these deer. I cry every time. Every time. It's not because I'm sad.
No, keep it waiting. Because you're buffering.
Because I'm buffering. Because GPS sucks.
A big part of the hunt, of course, is why you do it. And for us, we like the adventure. We like the
Keep enjoying it.
not knowing what's going to happen.
Because everything that I do is for the deer, it's for the wildlife, it's for me to feel.
How do you feel?
Frustrated.
Academy Award winner.
Yeah, basically.
Emmy.
Award, yeah. Well, as a matter of fact.
It's because you got it. Because the reason why we started doing this filming, started kind of doing this was because of our reason.
The reason why I hunt is because I want to feel like
A big part
I
of
feel like I want to be a part of something bigger. I want to be a part of life. Coming out here allows me to feel like I'm a part of life. I get to experience myself in a way that to test my strength, also my endurance, but my mind. It's a way for me to put myself to the test, but feel like I'm much bigger than I am. Feel that like I'm a part of something. Because it's the wildlife, it's the wild places that makes me do what I want to do. It makes me do what I do. Because without them, I'm nothing. And it's the whole reason why I educate as much people as I can to respect the wildlife, to have compassion for the deer. It's not just an animal that we eat. It's something that we are.
We get back to camp and we sit down and watch that, and geez, it wasn't a dry eye in camp. Yeah, that was good. Now, the vast majority of us, we're probably 3 or 4 miles away. Salt. Airplane miles. We're quite a ways. Yeah.
Hey guys, I don't have much battery left, but I'm not going to go now. And I'm going to take it down the hill so that way we have good pictures, because that's what it's all about. Casey's got a butt down, needs some help, so I'm going to head back to the rig. Got a hold of Rodney and Taylor, and they're going to meet me down at the road. All right, Casey, I hope it's a hog. Just busted out on the road. All the way down in there. Whew. Look at that, isn't that beautiful?
Where we were, the snow was starting to rot off pretty good.
Make sure you take a minute to appreciate it.
This is in Rangeley in Maine. Yep, Eustis. And we don't mind taking part of our time out and going and helping somebody else when they've got their deer. That's part of the fun.
Ready to go? Go drag it back. Let it in.
The bare ground is a little tougher. We'll try and bring a sled with us to help get them out. That works pretty good. Anything plastic you can put in underneath them will help like crazy. Protect the hide a little bit. If it does get dragged, try and just
Don't go anywhere. We're coming. Oh my God. I can't wait to go. I just climbed out of that cubicle. I know it's a hog. I just know it.
It's the only part of the video you can hear right there. Blows your ears out.
Yeah. Now you can see the hillside right there, and it's relatively steep. I mean, it's in between. Not real hard climbing. It's a little slippery with the snow being wet like that right there, but it's not too bad.
But of course, the deer, they usually take the nice easy paths, and that's where my does were. They were nice, easy, just gentle slopes going right up, and they just led me to this perfect little figure that brought me right up to the elevation on the hill where the buck was. And so a lot of times that's what we'll end up doing is we'll just kind of walk with the deer walk because they're out there 24/7. So they're like, I'm not gonna go up this side hill like this. I'm gonna go where it's easy walking. And that's usually what we always end up doing anyway. We just pick the easiest path, and if it's a little longer, big deal.
You can see a red hue to the cut. All these trees are like red, even way up in here, all the way out through. When a cut has all that red hue to it, especially when there's snow on it like that, I love it. When I see that red glow, that's nothing but antifers for deer right there. They want to be in there. And you can, it's open enough that you can see pretty good. You can still see what's going on. But there's also bigger timber and even some shelves and bumps and stuff for them to lay down on. That spot just says, come on up here, come check this out. That's just one of those spots. Now, one of our problems in Vermont is we don't have any of that red stuff. You don't see that hardly anywhere. And especially in the southern half of the state, Nick Fortin, a deer biologist, he says on GIS, I cannot get a percentage of new successional forests south of Rutland. He said, I can't even get like 1/4% anywhere on my maps, anywhere. There's like no new forest. And with a huge exterior canopy, and our average tree in Vermont is an 11-inch hardwood, you know, about 50 years old or so. That's not a real productive forest when it comes to birds, or even deer or any of those things. So you want to keep that in mind. If you find a spot where there's some cutting and it looks like that in it, boy, there's food. And especially if somewhere close by, and on the downhill side of this, it's green and swampy, and on the uphill side, it's green and rocky. Those are two good features to have next to a big food source like that. That just says, come on in here and take a look. Now, this is the first week in November, and the first week or two in November, whenever we start seeing rubs, scrapes, any buck sign at all, we want to hunt there, especially if it's big sign. If we see some big signpost rubs, or even a bunch of rubs that are all in succession along some place, I want to hunt there. The last 3 or 4 years, every time we find sign, we start hunting it harder right around that sign and we jump. The buggers are right there. If they're laying down some sign in that first week in November, they're living right there. You see buck sign on that first week in November, boy, that's like, get right on it. The trouble is, like with Vermont, we start later, our season's a little bit later, so they've laid down a whole bunch of sign, and now that it's getting closer to the does almost being in heat, so now they go into search phase, and the bucks aren't around their sign anymore, they're too busy looking for doe. So they go into that circulate, instead of lay down sign, they're circulating. So you'll have to weigh that a little bit, but that first week in November, every time we find buck sign, the deer's right there. And if you can find some scrapes with big, huge, nice, big 3-inch wide tracks, that's good. We want in right there. And if there's a bunch of us and we spread out in the beginning, the first week, we'd like to spread out and cover as much territory as we can, individually especially, because we're trying to gather as much information and try and find as big a nice sign and big deer as we can. And if we can locate 5 or 6 great big buck, and we're going to be there for a couple of weeks, now we know there's a big one in this valley, and there's a big one on that mountain over there, and then there's another one over there. And we share the information with ourselves. And then we can now focus on those spots. Or as soon as the snow flies, now we'll go and check all of those. All those roads in that area, all that, even if we don't find the track crossing a road, and Taylor's wicked, I'll drop him off, and he'll go right up over a mountain like that, and right down the other side, and just like Casey was saying, when you're playing Battleship, you play Sawball, you fire 5 shots. Bang, 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 bang. I always fire them on a diagonal, and I fire them all in a row, right? And I'll hit something. When I drop Taylor off right here, and he climbs up over that, or even skirts that mountain and goes down the other side and comes out on the road over there, we've made a cross section of that chunk of land. And if any buck has gone across there, but he hasn't crossed the road, it's an extra chance to pick up a track. Now, while he's going up over the mountain, he's not hunting. I mean, he'll pay attention. You could bump right into one. You know, you can't ever not stop looking. But he's not really hunting that much. He's just cruising that hill and going right up over the top and down the other side and finding out how many deer are up there and just what's going on and if a big one has come across there. That has worked really good for us wherever dead-end roads are, and we cut from one dead end up over to the other. Anything like that. Just a big cross-section of a chunk of land. There's another one there that's got 3,000-foot peaks all in a row, and they drop me off, and I'll go up all the way up over the first one, and up over the second one, and down over the third one, and down into the bottom. And if I don't cut a track in that about 7-mile run, there's something wrong. Most all the time, you can find something. And in Vermont, it's even easier. You don't usually have to go more than a mile, and you're on a buck track of some kind. Even if it's a 2.5-year-old, you'll come across something.
That's moving at like a hiking speed almost.
Yeah, just a regular, what's comfortable so that you don't get super hot and sweaty, but you're getting something done, And up there, you might have like 4 deer per square mile, where if you come here and you got 10 or 12, 15 deer per square mile, you're going to see a lot more sign here. You'll get waylaid. All kinds of things will come along, but after a while, you kind of get the hang of figuring out which is big and which isn't, and also too just paying attention to everything.
You're usually walking maybe a mile an hour tops, especially as soon as the terrain starts getting really humpy bumpy. You don't want to be going really fast because that's when your clothes get ripped. That's when you get scraped up. you're just going at a comfortable speed, and you're just basically getting to where you get a little warm, and then you slow down, and then you go a little faster, and that's what we end up doing. So that way we don't get soaked inside, because we want to be comfortable all day. Because if something happens at night, might be 10, 11 o'clock by the time you get out of the woods. And so it's like if the temperature starts dropping and you're not moving as fast because you've been walking all day, now it's time, then that's when you start getting cold. So we usually just go until you started getting a little bit warm, unzip a little bit, let it all cool off, and then restart. But we're maybe averaging a mile and a half tops.
It depends on what you're doing in the wood that determines your speed. If you're tracking a buck, the speed that they're kind of taking steps, if they're doing a lot of stopping, a lot of turning, and a lot of like, go over here, sniff this, walk over there, it's like you should be taking your time and really looking. I like to think of deer hunting as driving at night. Like, you never want to drive faster than you can see stuff happening in your headlights, right? So if you run through the woods, you can't keep up with all the things that are happening in the woods as fast as you're moving, right? So making sure that you're at a speed where you're not going to miss a trick, that's perfect. When you can basically scan everything, and then if a chickadee moves over here, you're like, wham, right there. And if you can pick up those things, that's kind of the speed you should be going at. But if you have a buck that's straight line and he's hammering, like you can a lot of times, you get so much data from the track that you know what the environment's going to be like. But determining your speed that way, that's super, super helpful.
The few times when we really haul, like just go, is brand new snow with no tracks anywhere. Like you just got some brand new snow at 2 in the morning, and it's now 8 o'clock, and the deer haven't had much time to move, and there's like no tracks, no rabbit tracks, no nothing tracks. I'm gonna haul. I'm just gonna go cross country, just wherever, and I'm not looking for nothing. I'm keeping my chin up, but I'm just going and just plow right along. The other thing is if I'm plowing along in really old snow and there's no tracks. If I'm in a spot where there's no deer tracks and there's good snow and I can see quite a ways and there's no tracks around, I'm gonna go. The second I come on to even old tracks, I'm gonna gear back just a little bit. Slow up in just a little bit. You'll have to also too make sure that every time you're coming around a corner, every time you're coming up over something, I'm following them through the woods when they're little, right? And I'm doing this. Don't look down at the ground. Keep your chin up, right? As soon as you're looking down here, you're going to bump into something. So every time you're going around a corner, coming over a hump, anything like that, I'm paying attention. Because I don't know how many times we come around the corner in the skid road and the deer's standing right there. They're feeding away, just blah, blah, blah. I don't have a clue. Just happen to be standing there, and I'm hauling, and I go, oh, right there. Just like walk right up to them. I kind of got a knack for just doing it. The other thing is I just use the forks, right? I come to a fork in the logging rows, and I'm saying left or right, right? I look at the two, and I say, which one's calling to me? One of these wants me to take it, so I can find that deer that wants me to shoot it. It's just, that's the way it's going to be. And I use my feelings, and I use my guts, and I say right here, and right here, and right here. And without a plan, just walk right up to them. That has worked so good for me. How many times have you said to yourself, I got a gut feeling. I knew that was going to happen. And then, whoo, boom, 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 and off they go, right? Trusting that gut feeling that comes natural to you. If we all did that like children, we'd be really good, right? It's really good. As soon as we start questioning our gut feelings and we start weighing things, we can make decisions that might or might not, and we're like, it's like you're thinking about it too much, you're putting too much in it. And like how you feel about what you're doing is super important. When an athlete is doing something really good, if you're Mark Spitz and you're swimming in a swimming pool, are you thinking about anything else? You're focused, right? It's swim. And that's all he's thinking about. When I'm following a deer, that's all I want to be thinking about. I don't want to have anything in my way. And I don't want to put out like this, I'm going to get you vibe. It's one thing that Taylor, when he was young, he's like, I'm going to get you. And the moose were like, what? Right. Remember that screaming thing that he just talked about? He'd give off this vibe of like, I'm going to get you. And all the moose are getting up, running off. And I'm like, dude, you've got to just calm that down a little bit. They don't like that. Your dog picks up on how you feel, right? He really does. If you walk through the woods with this predator kind of thing, everything, Elmer Fudd thing, right? You can't do that because they pick up on that. And it's like, but if you walk through like the little Ewok on Star Wars, he lives in the woods, he's there every day,
All the
everything's
time
cool.
that there is, and you're like,
He walks through the woods that way and he shoots a deer in 10 minutes.
yeah, you just whatever, and then you like, this just feels nicer. Go in this trail right here. And that's all you're doing. And you're like, because you come to that fork in the road and you'd be like, don't think about it, just walk. And your feet will say, oh yeah, you're gonna go this way. This is where your deer is. But then you start thinking about it, you're like, I should go left because eventually I'm along with the truck and that's the way the truck is. You're like, no, go this way.
That kind of belonging in there, you want to feel like that. You want to feel like you belong in those woods. You're a product of nature too, right?
Yep.
That matters too. Now, when it comes to applying it at home, and now you're going out, what? Time for a break? Yep. When you're doing it at home and you're applying it, or when you're going with somebody else, and the two of you are working together, you may have to work on, I have to tell them, shh, or sometimes they're telling me, Dad, shut up, right? Being noisy by it really isn't a super big deal until the deer's real close, or until you call to. If you call to an animal, they locate things by sound 24 hours a day. They're so good at that, and when they hear a sound at 300 yards and it's right there, and they hook around and get downwind, and then come up in there, and they're sitting and looking for that, and they'll walk right, like a turkey will come sometimes out, right up to within 50 yards of you, and then like, it was right here. They do that. Deer and moose are really good at that. And when they pull up to that spot and they're like, I should be seeing something right here. You move or make anything right then, like when Casey actually shot his deer, if he did anything right then, that deer had been on it, just like that. And Vermont deer are smart. Oh, them things are on it. They don't miss one little molecule of scent or any amount of movement. They're on it, just like that. So that last little second there, boy, that's when you want to be quiet.
So let's take a break and then we're gonna go jump into questions. Probably 10-minute break or so, stretch your legs, go outside, get some fresh air, and read. Yeah. What size are your feet? I have 10. Same thing. Same exact thing. And also, dogs tend to have a little bit of water versus you go with a little bit more and basically you're just going to look to so you're looking a lot of times, you'll see a track in the snow, and there'll be one that's like, but then a dog, of course, little bucks, the same thing as little bucks, not going to change this because of the body size relative to the size. As soon as you start getting of course, that's why we hunt 200 pounds, because it's easy to tell which one is bigger. That's right. Right. Yep. There you go. Oh yeah. Simple and easy. Simple and easy. Yeah, with also stride. Of course, stride is your attitude. And of course, if Joe's going like running, she's gonna have a bigger stride.
Undo that. I want to go see Jimmy. Excuse me.
It doesn't fit me. Oh, thanks.
Jimmy, wave to the camera.
Cocoa Puff's hiding. He's right here.
There's Cocoa Puff, the man.
There he is.
Jimmy, come over here. Come over here.
Go say
Jimmy,
hi. Go say hello.
how did you get started tracking? I don't know. He doesn't know?
I didn't like sitting.
He didn't like sitting. Got sick of it. I gotta say, same thing here.
You and Jeff got me on the most of it, taught me most of it.
Yep. Sitting gets wicked boring. And like you're waiting for something to happen.
And you get really cold.
You get cold?
You get really cold.
Yep. Yep.
Sit down for 15 minutes, I'm cold.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Get hot moving.
Yeah, you can get warm moving up and down the mountains. Yeah.
Less clothing you gotta bring.
Right. Yep. It's been a lot of fun, that's for sure. Yep.
Say hi, Patrick.
There's Pat. Yep. Jared Dog.
Where's Pretty Boy? There you
Jared
are.
Dog. Pretty boy.
Oh, I didn't realize you were here too.
Yep.
You're not kidding.
Yep.
The whole crew came to
Hope
this one.
everybody out there has a great season. Here we go. It's just about to get started here. Some of you are like archery hunting are already at it. That's great. I've had a couple of real nice ones come in the shop here. Oh, there's
Beautiful.
some nice ones. Yep. Yeah, it should be another good season. Expecting it. Yep.
Okay, we're going back to the setup here. Okay, everybody watch your feet. Whoa.
No, well, Dad's been doing it like 20-some-odd years now. So he's been doing it, because this is why they always went to the big woods, basically. They're always going to the big woods. Yeah, and it was basically, because he was kind of growing out of this here. It's like, what are you doing more? But it's hard to have something more when I can't, it's not a lead. He's like, there's space. Just because the style of hunting we have requires more space. Only requires one bow. That's all you need. That's half. And of course, that style, that you can do that way more places than you can. It's a lot of fun because it's a story. Or what you do is you go to the beach to practice. Or you go when it's dark, you go on the street and you see a dog. But then also look at the dog, then look at his tracks, look at the tracks and say, okay, that body language of the dog right there is made it easy. And you can say, this dog is going after the ball. You can see, oh, their tracks are and then, the owner called and they got up their attention, and then they said, I didn't want to go. They went this way. Then it went around, and then it came back over. We do that on the beach all the time. It's like, because when you walk, different strides, but also look at your feet. Your feet are this way. And so sometimes when people walk, they walk this way. And so what that does, now I can hold myself in
Yeah. Up here last winter and refinished. I have a mount that's like 40 years old. Needed to be touched up and cleaned up. We did that. We dropped off my dad's antlers from 1963. Oh wow! I know. I grew up in Newport, but now I live in Barney. So we have a camp in Avon. Yeah, that's way up. Yeah, they can almost walk the camera. Yeah. It's Canaan, and then Averill, and then Leamington, and Norton, and then there's a bunch of little doors. You got a little Averill and big Averill. Yeah, our camp, we go past Averill, can't remember if it's big Averill or little Averill. We go by Forest Lake. There's a road that goes up and goes all the way to Canaan. Our camp is off that road right when you get out to the height of the man. So we're off the road. We're out on a branch of the Willard Stream. Oh, I haven't hunted. Yeah, never bring many deer. No, the moose country. Oh God, yeah, there's still a lot of moose. Yeah, there's a lot of moose there in this. Yeah. We got some nice deer out of there in the 70s and 80s, and then we started seeing the moose. I've seen the moose push the deer around, watching that doe and a fawn, and then the moose will come in and take them off. Well, you figure they eat all the food from the ground that the lions eat off. Yeah, well, I know there's a lot fewer moose now. Yeah, there is. That's find blood in the veg and all the I had one friend that had a moose come out. He lived in a moose. And a camp, and the deer came out, and the moose came out. All the fur was gone. And you could see the skin of it roll and the skin.
Yeah, what happens, they try to rub them off from the trees, and they end up rubbing them in the air.
And you got permission to shoot it from the game. Yeah, it's very good. And he shot it, went over to him, and he said you could just see the tips on the skin. He said it was good.
I shot a deer down in North Carolina once. I took it back to the garage. It was pretty warm. This was in October, November. It was pretty warm. I put the air conditioner on in the garage, hung the deer up to cool it. And I had to put a big saucer down, a big tray. Ticks were just falling off of that deer. There must have been 1,000 ticks on that. There's a lot of ticks in North Carolina, but they don't have line.
Oh, I live in Caledonia County, which that one is from my Rodney, has the highest grade of honey. If you don't put the bug spray on, you forget it.
What I do is I buy the permethrin and mix it up 2 ounces per gallon. You can buy it on eBay. 2 ounces per gallon. I just soak my woods clothes in it, hang it up to dry, and you're good for the whole summer.
I used to get Uncle Ben's, and because it's almost like 100%.
Yeah, well, this will kill the ticks. They'll try to crawl up your leg, and they're just so sick and so dumb, they won't bite you, and they just fall out. Yeah, we used it in North Carolina because there's so many ticks and chiggers. Chiggers are worse than ticks. They're red bugs, and they crawl under your skin, and then you die. And they shit and die under your skin because of this awful rash. We don't have them here.
The way the climate's running out,
Well, maybe the deer hunting will get better up in April.
well, like this weekend, Saturday, and it told me to be like 30 actually go in here and
sit there all day, don't get cold.
I don't know the process.
Yeah, I got a crossbow last year. I haven't shot anything with it.
I haven't shot anything else. I shot there.
So accurate.
Mine goes 401 feet per second.
Yeah. What's the furthest you can practice at?
I can shoot and hit the target at 90 yards. But when I hit the target at 90 yards, there's not a lot of force. Because I have that target. Yeah, and I'm about 30 yards. Most of my arrows go like this. When I get to 90 yards, I'm not this much.
You get it's a bumblebee and stuff and put it's like a sack full of red stalks and 30 yards. Yeah, it works really well.
Now the third one does that, but after quite a few arrows,
Doesn't tear them up.
this one tears them up. But I mean 30 yards, and you trying to get the arrow out of it.
Yeah, no, it comes right out. It comes right out. That works good. It's yellow jack. Yellow jack. It works really well.
I hunt on the ground and practice. Then my deck sits about 9 feet above the ground. So I sit up there and pin it down.
Same deal. Yeah, no, I had one. I practiced up to 40 yards last year because That's the furthest I've ever shot with a compound. Darned if I didn't have a big, it was an atypical come out. It was 50 yards away. And I didn't know where to hold. I felt so stupid. I let him walk.
The cut was 50 yards. You pushed it.
Yeah.
Really nice shot. But yeah, mine. I get mine at good ball.
Yeah, I don't. Well, the nice thing about that yellow jacket is it's got 5 targets on it. I don't shoot the same target. Hang up the bolts.
Don't worry, guys. We're gonna get going again.
Really 9 o'clock.
Another question on
Now, a big part of course, going hunting and then getting into different methods of doing it was tracking for me. And when I wanted to get a rabbit the worst way, I was probably about his age, and I just wanted to get a rabbit. And my uncle says, well, just wait till it snows, and when there's a brand new rabbit track, just go follow it. And when it comes to a big blowdown or something, give it a kick, the rabbit will come running out, and you can shoot it. So I'm like, okay, I got a 22, right? I'm brand new out of hunter safety course. Yep. So I jump into it, and I start following. I got a brand new smell, so I start following, and he says, the big tracks are in the front, right? The rabbit, the back legs are in the front. Oh, that's good to know, right? So I go out, I follow them in a circle, and sure enough, I kick this big blow down. Rabbit comes running out, and I miss. But I had a great time, and I now kind of understood it a little bit. Now, you're not going to want to take it up where there's millions of rabbits everywhere, but that little bit of practice of trying it and seeing what it takes to not only follow the track, but understand the terrain around you and what might happen. Now, as my friend and I started doing this, and we started being like coyotes, we would parallel each other. One guy's on the track, the other guy's watching what's going on. Now this is just a rabbit, it's not that far. Most of the time it's 50, 100 yards, 150 yards, right in that circle someplace. And we started learning the kind of woods that the rabbit would be in. And we started learning about that habitat and the way it, so pretty quick, I now let him go right along and I watch and I parallel, and then here comes that big blow down, and the two of us, and I'm swinging around, and he brings it, and he says, yep, it's right here someplace. Now, he's doing the circle, I'm doing the circle, that thing didn't come out, it's in here. Are you ready to go? Yep. Boom, and the rabbit comes running out, and bang. Now, when we were kids and we were doing this, we got pretty good at it after a while, and the little 200-acre piece that we used to hunt, pretty soon we had nearly every rabbit dead in there. It didn't take us long. We were hunting every single day, got right after it. Now, we said to ourselves, someday, if we get to doing this, it's going to be awesome, because if we can do this with deer. So we started following the deer. Now, a deer is a lot bigger circle, and a deer can walk a long ways with just those 4 legs in a few hours. Oh, they can walk a long ways. And if they don't stop, the chances of me catching up to them are 0. Like, it's not going to happen. So you need a reason for them to stop a little bit. But we started learning where the deer circle was. We'd learn one rabbit, and that rabbit would start getting on to us, and we'd have to start playing all these different games of where he'd like to go, and what he'd like to do, and how he'd like to escape, and where we came at him last time, and how he reacted, and what woods he used in order to get away from us. And whether or not we could get him out into the open, or get him in someplace tight, and push him through the tight spot, and then get him at a pinch somewhere. The boys and I, this is another method that we use quite a bit that is pretty handy, and especially with double teaming. I got sick of hunting all by myself all the time. Now, I like my alone time. I'm pretty good with me. I like it nice and quiet and just me, that's cool. But I've had a lot more fun hunting right with somebody. And of course, they're up to the age now where they're ready to go a little bit, and we start going, and I just tell them, go ahead and follow the deer. Let's see where the deer goes. So his head is down at the tracks, and away he goes. And it gets him started on a journey that will take him a long ways. It really will. And he goes along, and I'm in the back watching for the deer, and the two-man thing is so good. You don't miss a trick. And most of the time, the guy in the back seeing everything.
And of course, while I'm following the tracks, I'm not doing it right. I'm not looking right. I'm just saying, there's a deer track. Oh, there's a deer track. Oh, there's a deer track. And then they're like, the deer track. But of course, I'm relatively small. And of course, that's what ends up happening if you're 40 years old and you're just starting deer hunting. That's what ends up happening, because you still have to go through all those little steps, all those little learning processes anyway. And it doesn't matter, because Dad would say, one of my first deer. It's muzzleloader season. It's Monday morning. I was like, hey, Dad, can I stay home from school today? Because it's 6 inches of beautiful powder snow, and it's you were going to take me out this weekend, but you weren't home yet because you were getting your deer, so can we go out? So, yeah, no problem. So, we go out to Roxbury.
Ask your mother first.
Ask your mother first, because you're going to be taking the day off from school, right?
Mom, can I stay home? And she's like, yes. So we just go out to the road. We just go out to Roxbury, a little south of us here, and we're just driving looking for tracks. And we see the Lauren Bent, the snowplow driver. He's like, hey, what's going on? There's some beautiful little buck track right at this altitude. Dad's like, ooh, perfect. So Dad brings us out here. He says, get him, boy. And I just, basically like a little dog, and I'm sniffing all the tracks, and I'm going out here, and of course, he's just standing in the road. And of course, I'm like, you're not coming, apparently. Okay, I'm gonna kill myself.
I'm just standing in the road.
He's going, but he's already checked out the tracks, looked at everything, and said, the deer went in here, and he came out here. Same exact spot.
And I'm standing right where he's going to end up in a minute.
Exactly.
I've already gone like this and said, oh, right here.
And of course, I didn't know that, because I'm just starting this tracking journey, basically. And it's like, oh, you knew he crossed there. Yeah, I did. So, and now I'm following the track. Dad's right behind me, and we get to the good spot. He goes, oh, just a second, right here. And of course, it was nice to have a mentor that knew what he was doing. He's like, just a second. He just pulls me back a little bit, and he just grunts. And we wait. When you snort wheeze, that's deer. And so that is an aggressive thing to the buck. And of course, this is Vermont, so it's the deer aren't very big, and this is it's probably a pretty good chance that this is a relatively dominant buck. So that buck comes out, because of course, if this is his little castle, and if somebody's coming to threaten him, basically, he comes right out, and he comes right at me. Here's the doorway, and I'm just like, wow, what is happening here? And it just, there he is, shoot him, and I just, I can't see anything in my scope, all I see is brown. I just put it on him, and he just drops right then and there. But it was knowing that it's okay for me to, what kept him cool. It didn't say, oh, you have to do this, It was, go ahead. And it's the same thing with the rabbit. How many times were you...
Failure is an awesome teacher, right? It really does. Because when you go out and you screw up, and then it shows up again, you say, oh, I'm not going to do that again, right?
And a lot of people will not get deer. The reason why they won't get deer is because the amount of time that they spend hunting. If, like in Maine, you can't hunt Sundays. So if you can only hunt weekends, then you can only basically hunt 4 days. And then of those four good days that you could be hunting, maybe there's only 1 day that you actually have snow. So technically, you've only hunted with good conditions that you could possibly get a deer for 1 day. And so then it's maybe 8 hours. So I've hunted for 8 hours, and then over the course of 10 years, 8 hours every single year you don't have that much time basically. And so going out there, but also, and that was what we end up doing a lot of times is we practice tracking outside of deer hunting all the time. We'll be walking down the road, and we're going down the road, and the jogger came through. And I'm going to just put my feet in the joggers and pretend to be the jogger. But what that does is now it allows me to see what this person is doing. Also too, when you're tracking a deer, I'll do the same thing. Put the balls of my feet basically where the balls of the deer feet would be, and now it gets me feeling what it feels like to be this deer. If I know the deer is going nice and slow, I'm taking small steps, but if the deer is running, I have to run. So now I automatically get to read that by feeling the deer basically. So that's one way, and of course.
Now what was happening, right, I see, there's a barnyard. We're at an intersection of 2 roads. There's an apple tree on the corner of the intersection. Lauren says there's a track up there, so we pull over and I can see there's deer tracks all over the place right there. Because it's an apple tree and it's night and they've been all over the place. So as I get out, first thing I want to do is circle a barnyard. Whenever there's a million tracks, I want to circle that. So I'm circling it with my eyes and I'm seeing anything that left. Now I go like this, and I don't see anything else, and it was in here and round and round and round and back out the way it came in. So I go over to that spot, and now I say, okay, go get him. Now he's on the inside of that circle, right? So he's gonna come right back to me. So he goes, oh, boom, right? And then we start up into the woods. Now the deer's been feeding like crazy. There's a little green patch over here. Here's our intersection and the apple tree. And Casey gets out and he goes round and round right here. And it's probably 300 yards away right here. It's not far at all. Casey takes the deer and it goes out through here, and then it does kind of one of these and pulls up, and it does what I call a double. Both its front feet come to a stop. Boom. Now when you're about to make a decision in the woods, you'll do the same thing. You'll plant both your feet, right?
I gotta go pee. Same kind of thing. You're gonna be like,
right?
Where do I go?
Yeah.
Over here.
Casey pulls it. Casey gets right to this intersection, and it does a double, and it's just standing there. Then it steps away from it and walks up into this greenery. I can see the green trees up here, and it's a little bit of a rise, maybe 25 foot. Right up here, and it's a great place for the deer to bed down. And I can see that there's hardwoods all the way around that thing. Now the deer is fed like crazy. He's gone just a short ways, and then as he walked out into the woods a little ways, he started meandering a little bit, and there's some little buds nipped off here and there, and then he does a plant. But where he did the plant, he wasn't doing anything. He just like stepped up and went, survey the spot. Like, I need to lay down. That deer left a clue right there. And whenever they pull up and they do that and then break, especially if they break to the 90, ooh, now it's time to start watching. That's when I'm starting to pay attention. Whenever they're doing a double and they're like surveying a spot, you know how you'll do the same thing. You'll come over a hill and you'll get right up over the hill, and just as you're coming to a good spot to look around, what do? You plant, right? And you look around a little bit, and now you make a decision. Either keep going or break off in a direction, right? Well, that deer gave the clue. He's looking for a place to lay down. He's done all kinds of feeding. He's been here quite a while. And he's worked all this and out through it. And I'm sure he was out in here. There's another apple orchard out there, and he came from that and did one of these numbers. And I'm pretty sure he's right there. We get to the bottom of that, and there's still a shooting lane right there. The wind is right here. It's going this way across, and we're standing there. And I said to him, whoa, okay? We hit that elbow right there. And he wants to keep trucking, and I'm like, oh, just a second here. Let's give it. Now, I can't see up on this little knob that's right in front of us. It's 35 yards to it, and I can't see what's on top of it. But it's a nice little shelf. They like a flat spot to lay down. So the deer pulls up on top of that. Now's a great time to call. Let's just stand here for a minute and call a little bit. So we call a couple times and wait. How long do we wait? 30 seconds?
Yeah, at least 30 seconds.
And then I snort wheezed, and it was another 20.
Yep. And then all of a sudden, phew,
he
there
comes
he was.
right down the bank right at us. He just ears back and try out and looks over everything real quick. We're kind of in the open, and he does a quick scan and then step right down through, and then he comes. Now we're standing there all dressed in white, and we're just snow to him. He can't tell, and he walks right up to us. And as he's coming down the bank, I'm saying to him, I don't want to wind him up, but go ahead and shoot. Here he comes, right here. You know, you have to be careful when you hunt with, especially somebody brand new, or if you're brand new at it and you have this, you can feel your heart coming and like you really want it bad, and here we go, right? That's the time when you've got to be nice and keep yourself calm, talk yourself through it, don't wind it up too much, and especially it was real easy for me to wind him up, right?
Oh, yeah.
I can see him shaking like crazy if I said it the wrong way, so I'm like, oh, here we come, right here. And he pulls that thing up and boom, and it plants the deer just as nice.
And I didn't have time to think about it. I saw the deer, I saw the rat, and then he's like, here you go, shoot him. And it's like, it has to happen now. And he basically just lifted my arms up, and I just kept it going and shouldered it. And I couldn't see anything in the scope. I just see brown. I was like, I hope so. And there he was. But I was so close with the muzzleloader, it just went right into his neck, and it broke his backbone, and he just, poof, gone. And he was done. Didn't even twitch, nothing. He was just dead. And then, now, that's when I get wound up.
This total distance from this over to here, 300 yards.
Yeah.
Isn't anybody here that can't walk 300 yards? That's an easy one.
How long were we gone?
Total, between driving to Roxbury and back?
Oh, less than 2 hours.
Yeah, we were in 2 hours. Walked in 300 yards, shot the deer, dragged it right down here about, what, 80 yards?
Not even.
80, 90 yards. He was 80, 90 yards on the downwind side of a road where there's an intersection and lots of people hunt.
Oh, so
Where should have that buck been? On the downwind side, someplace close to that where he can keep track of everybody who's hunting.
Yep.
Right?
And that was in the state
Made
forest.
perfect sense. On state land,
Yep.
ready to go, it's the buck right over the lamp right there.
Yep.
And he was right there, right in that spot right there. And that's something anybody can do. That goes to show it doesn't always take much to know. The trick is to tell if a deer is close or if he's far away. Let's clean the board off here a little bit. This is another real important part, is knowing what track to take and what track not to take, especially when you're new at it. What did you learn when it came to that?
Which one?
About what track to take and what track not to take. You and I had a great discussion about this.
Well, a lot of times, the first time you look at its texture, when you step in the snow and then you put your finger in the deer's track, if there's a crust or if it's way melted out, the newer and the closer it resembles your track, the better it is, the newer it is, and the more likely you are to get a good look at that deer. But a lot of times, how new the track is when you first start is no real indication of how far the deer is away. Because Casey's deer tracks under the apple tree. It was at night, late evening, whatever, and it didn't take him very long. It didn't take him very far to catch that. Not completing road work. If you don't have a large amount of information with the track, you're like, oh, this is it. Like there are tons of logging roads in Maine. You're riding up a logging road or whatever, and there's a track across the road. If you get out and you're looking at it and you're like, well, what should we do? Right? There's a track going up into the woods, and you're like, do I take this track?
Famous line from Jimmy. Thorough road work. Thorough road work.
And the reason why is because the way the lay of the land is, especially on paper company land, the roads are really important because that's how they were pulling trees out, right? So there's lots of roads all over the place for them to access. They're always in the bottom, but they're not super long. And if the track goes up into the woods and you say, okay, let's take it. I'm feeling good about this. You pull over, you get off the road, you get out, load your firearm, you're going up into the woods, and you end up going a little ways. You probably go 300 yards and you come right back down to the road, and now you're going down the roadside. Getting as much information as you can before you take any track will tell you whether you should take this one or whether you should take it going down over there. Right? Because if you do a giant loop just to come back to the road, you've now wasted a half an hour of jump that you had if you just drove a little ways farther.
That's right. Because of course, if the deer takes all night to go all the way up that side and then comes back down to the road, that deer spent 8 hours. And it took you 4 hours to go all the way up and around and back down to the road. That deer still has a 4-hour jump on you. But if you just went down the road a little bit, now you have an 8 hour, you are 8 hours closer to the deer basically. And so when you wanna?
Yeah. Another thing about what track to take or what track not to take, or at least assessing a track. You're riding down the road, and anybody can do that. You can ride down the road and see where a deer crossed the track, across the road. If I pull up and we get out and we're going to look at this deer. Now this deer did this and did that, and then came from over here and he worked his way in that direction. We drive down the road and here's a deer track, and it walks down the side of the road nice and easy and walks back over here. Might even cross the road, feed down the side of the road. Then it goes out in the woods, and we drive down through and we look at it and say, oh, there's a pretty good deer, and it's going down. So we continue driving the road, we go a little farther, and here it comes, and now it's going up, right? Now, if we got out right here, we'd be doing a dead loop back to ourselves. So that's why driving the road all the way to the end, understanding everything that's going on is real important. It'll save you a lot of legwork on the wrong side of the road or being in the wrong place. So we work our way down, we check this, and we say, oh, there's a deer, and it's going down. We go a little farther, and here's a deer going up. Now, I might not necessarily, especially being the beginning of the road right here, or just started the road, I'm not necessarily going to get out and have a look at this because he's walking real easy and he's kind of even following the road. He may actually walk right in the road.
Yep.
I'm not going to get out and look at that track. I'll look at it real quick just to see if it's big or small or whatever. But other than that, I really don't care. I ride a little farther down and now it looks like the same one and it comes across and it's still doing the meandering kind of going slow thing. Is that deer probably far away? If he's just kind of taking his time, he's got small stride and he's not on a line, not like on the interstate. Joe Danino likes to say on the highway, right? When you're on the highway and going. This deer is not on the highway. It's feeding and taking his time. It's gone a little ways and it's gone up in here. So we say, well, there's a pretty good one, and odds are that deer is probably less than a half a mile away. Most of the time, it's within a half mile. If it's going real easy right here, it's close. It could be a buck, doe, whatever, but that deer is not far away. If I ride down a little farther and I get out, and this one's taking a pretty good step, and it's holding a line. It's holding a steady direction all the time. I mean, it has to go around things, but if it continues in a pretty steady direction for a long period of time, and I pull up to this and I get out, I'll walk up it a little bit, just a little bit, and look at it and see how fast it's going. If it looks like it's going pretty fast, or say it's a really big deer, now I'm going to go back down here. I don't want to go up in there any farther than I have to begin with, because I'm just trying to assess what's going on. I'll get out of the truck and I'll look at that real quick. I might go in there 10 yards and I'll look up in the woods and make sure the thing ain't standing there, right? Then I'll walk back down and I'll go back in here. If I get down inside the woods just a little ways and the deer does a four-way stop, he's walking and he goes, and he's checking that road, right? He's listening. Is any cars coming? It's a road. Ooh, right? He's checking it. Now, if he does it twice, if there's another spot farther down and he stops and listens, and he stops and listens, that's probably a big deer, probably an experienced deer. Most of the time, the experienced ones stop twice. That just seems to be the way it's been for quite a few years now, especially in Maine, last 10 years. They don't like crossing the road, and they'll stop and assess and make sure it's okay before they go across. I've seen a few of them jump across. Yep. They were walk, stop and listen, pull up a little farther, stop and listen, and then run over the road and get on the other side, and then do a rub or lay down a scrape right away. As soon as they cross that road, run, there. I got that over with, and I'm marking this as my woods. And then back at it again, like he's on a search, looking for doe. If he goes back to that fast pace right here, and he does this, and say he's a great big one, and he's really hauling right along, taking big steps, and he's holding a line, that's a deer you're probably not going to catch if you're not really physically fit, or if the track is even slightly old. You probably will not catch that deer. And that's going to be one where you say, I don't think so. That might be one we can't catch. Especially if I go up in there 300 yards and it's still holding a line and it's still going right along. It's got that cruising, I need to find a doe thing. That's one that's going to go a long ways. You're going to have your sneakers on.
The amount of times that we've done that, we've gotten on a track and we're like, this is a big track, it's fresh, and we're not peeling off this thing, right? Stubborn. Reading the track and you're like, this thing's hauling. And I'm like, we're not leaving this. And Dad's like, you're in for a run, boy. Right? And we literally ran all day. We jogged. We were jogging through the woods, right? You're like, safety, here we go, right? And we're going through the woods as fast as we can, but still keeping our heads up, like we're hopping over things. And we all of a sudden get to a cliff, and then there's just this sea of green, and it's 3:30. And we're 3.5 miles from the truck, and we've gone over here and then over there and then straight for a line. He's like, what did you learn? Right? He's like, the time, right, you're catching up to them late. You're there late, right? He's already an hour ahead of you, and he does not stop. You cannot keep up with that. You can't. He may have the same stride as me, right? I might have the same stride as him. But if we're going at the same pace and you have an hour jump on me, it ain't happening. I can't catch you unless you stop.
Right, you're more than an hour.
That's right.
Because if you have an hour jump on you and you're not going, if I'm taking my time stopping once in a while, and then, so if what he's doing is we're reading tracks, we're going down the road.
Pace.
This is a good one. This is a meandering one. So it means this deer is taking a lot of time to go a short distance. The next track we were going down the road, and the deer has a much faster pace. The deer is going at a quicker speed for who knows how long, depending on how old the track is.
Right.
So this deer is going to cover a lot of distance. So in order to make that, I have to be double his speed in order to catch him up in the same amount of time.
There's
So this
also
is where
there's a
you
period of time during the season where the does are not coming into heat, but the bucks are getting wound up. And what they're doing is they're just covering miles, right? They're frustrated, and they're like, we need to find a doe, need to find a doe, need to find a doe, and that's all. They do this like a zombie walk. They have their head down, their nose are down, and they just hammer nonstop. You know, they're in a fast walk all the time. They might stop, they'll neck this out, and then pull right back to it. That's a hard time to track and keep up with them. And what you're doing is figuring out the loop. Because if that buck is hammering, but he always goes in the same spot, right? And you're like, oh, this is a fresh track. Watch this, right? And you go up over the ridge and say, we know about where he's going to be. That gives you a chance. Kind of patterning them in that early season is a little bit easier, right? They all have a loop. We all have something we do every day. That's why when you park your car and your Siri says, yeah, it's 22 minutes to work, there's light traffic, right? We're all creatures of habit as much as deer are, right? And in that early season when it's hard to catch them, making sure you have the information and kind of like keeping an eye on that deer can kind of like offset the advantage of time and speed that they have.
Which is why early season we are spreading out, we're getting as much information as possible. So we're riding, we're checking the roads, and we're remembering this track there's been this size track here multiple times. So this is a portion of his loop, or a portion of where this deer has been habitually going. So we want to just kind of keep that in our mind, so that way we can kind of keep assessing and say, oh, I found something here. Taylor's also found something here. So if he starts here on this road, all he has to do is be on this side over here, and in a couple hours or whatever, the odds of that deer going into that direction probably are pretty good.
Their crossing spots are sometimes very reliable depending on the deer. Like say that buck likes to cross at mile marker 3 right there. That's it. Or like on your road wherever you are, and you've got a little bit of softwood and a little place for him to slip through and get through from one side to the other. If he likes to cross there and you've got fresh snow now, and every day I drive up the road, I know my road and where they cross. And when I get to that spot where they always cross, I slow the truck right down, I look out the window, and boom, there's a track. And it's going this way right to my land. Where am I going to start? On the downwind side of my border, right? I'm going to walk right around that. Automatically, I know right away, if he went in on the beginning of my road, and he works his way up through into where I can hunt, I'm going to make that swing through the woods. And it might only take me a half hour to check. And if he's there, now I can make the most use of it. I mean, you want to make the most use of whatever you got going on. If he likes to cross mile marker 3, and we're over on another road, and Casey says, oh, he's coming, and he's headed over towards that road over there, and one of us gets over here on 3, go check 3, right? We do the swing, and somebody else checks it, and all of a sudden we're on him.
Because even if it takes me 2 hours to go from where I am to that crossing spot, he has just gained, and now Dad just picks the track up and he keeps going. He's gained 2 hours on that, to being 2 hours closer to where the deer is. So this is where that leapfrogging method kind of helps, in kind of we can take advantage of having help basically. But of course it all changes on where you hunt and how you're going to hunt. Of course, this is a different scope. Hunting in the big woods is a way different scope than if you're on your land right out here.
The principles of attitude, the attitude of the deer, it doesn't matter what size land. If you have a small parcel, say you're hunting on 100 acres, and that deer has that attitude and he's going straight, is he still on your land? Probably not, right? He's probably not. So making sure that like the distance, how they're feeling, that's super, super, super important. That's really the meat and potatoes of tracking, is being able to read the attitude of the deer. Is this deer close?
Right.
What is he doing? What is shooting if you're tracking a doe? It's all the same kind of principles no matter what section of the woods you're in.
Yep.
Do you use it all to document your waypoints of where you're consistently seeing deer when you're traveling all these roads?
I just barely got on Onyx just like 4 days ago. And tried it out a little bit.
Maybe.
Just barely tried it out. I cued in our area right here, and I was a little bit like, wow, there's a lot of discrepancies. There was like in names and stuff, and also too where borders were and new spots being broke up. And I think as like, especially with Vermont, we are most all our town clerks and stuff are all supposed to get digital and within the end of the year here or whatever, they're supposed to get it updated. And Onyx works hard to get that updated, and it's a pretty neat piece of equipment. You know, to have it right on your phone and know if you're on your lane or somebody else's, that's awesome. And I think it'd be great for knowing. It really is. There's so much of being able to know where it is, and there's tons of overlay. Like you can do all kinds of different overlays to show you topographical and all that stuff. And depending on how much money you want to spend on it, you can really make it good.
It would be really good if you're hunting a larger area, something that you have multiple deer, multiple years, multiple seasons all the time. Then because I've done GIS systems and all this other stuff, and it works really great for kind of knowing runs. I used to be a forester, and I would end up just kind of following the terrain, but I would be able to look at my map and say, oh, if I go up this little chute right here, I can get over this really steep cliff that I'm going to be marking the boundary. So it could actually be really handy if you're tracking a deer in unfamiliar woods, because then you can just know how to read the map really easily, and you can say, oh, back when I did this over here on this parcel of land, this topography right here was really key and really important, and it can be invaluable information that you can get from that. So if that's something that you can do and you can take advantage of that technology, do it.
Most of the time, we pretty much know the woods that we hunt in so well that we really don't mark things. We mostly can, it's like things in your house. You can make pretty good mental note of like, okay, I left it on the cabinet, and I left it on the counter or whatever. And like we use gazetteer maps. So what we'll do is like when we get a deer, right? It's like 204 this date, right there. And we can see trends over years doing that. Mostly, we just haven't really tapped into the tech because we hunt the same. It's like roughly 50,000 acres, or whatever. It's the same section of paper company that we go to basically every year, at least in Maine. And we've learned it so well. All the roads are named, mile markers on it because it's logging roads. Like it's pretty sectioned up for us really well for little bite-sized pieces.
Until night falls.
Until nightfall, and that's when we'll use our we have GPS. We use most of the time it's merely compass for navigation if you're in anything unfamiliar. But we do have GPS, and we'll mark locations like this is a good spot. Like if you're out here just for a walkabout, like say there's no snow, this is a good spot to be in because this is that kind of woods you like. Like we'll make little notes like that, but haven't really gotten into the taking advantage of all the map tech out there quite yet.
There's a lot there, and it adds to your hunt, ain't no question.
Yep.
Now, Taylor's big 260 pounder that I told him, you're not going to catch that deer. You're going to go a long ways on.
Even though I wanted to.
It was the biggest track he's ever laid eyes on, and it was one of my top 10. I mean, that thing was wicked. And he's like, I don't care. That thing is just so big. I got to follow that thing. Let's just go. And and it just keeps going and going and going. And when we get to the end, and it goes out into that ocean of soft woods as far as the eye could see, and it went out in this ocean, and it's gated, and you got to walk only. And we're going over the back side of the mountain range and into another valley, which isn't even close to where we started, and we've gone a long ways. An important part of tracking is knowing where your bingo is, right? When the jet takes off from the carrier and he goes out over the ocean, how far can he fly? Halfway. If anything, he should stop before he gets to halfway, right? Because if he turns around and on the way home, mistake, or he's off course just a little bit, he's not getting back onto the carrier. It's going to be important for you to know how far you can walk, to know how much you can do. And you're going to want to take your time and go slow and get used to how far and how much you can handle. Now, the only way you're ever going to get to do this is to do it. So you've got to start walking right off the bat. And you've got to do some tracking. And you've got to kind of stick to it for a while. You've got to just kind of swing into it and do it. And then all of a sudden, that one time, you may go a little too much. And you'll say, ooh, I'm not going to do that again. Knowing when and how to get back and taking your time and getting used to what your personal bingo is. Now, it should improve as the season goes. When I first start, I'm good for 4 miles on the first day?
Oh, yeah.
I'm good for about 4 miles straight out of the box. and 4 miles back. And then after that, day 2, I'm like, not gonna go so far today, right? You're gonna have that happen a little bit, but as the season progresses, the better you'll be at it and the farther you'll go. So we continue driving down the road, and he's like a no deer. That one is really going. It's great that it's so big. Unless it finds something out here and comes to a stop, we're probably not going to see it. And that's a like, no, but we're going to keep our eyes open for that one, right? That's the most ideal track, but it's going too far, too fast, and we're not going to catch it. So I continue down to the end of the road, and when I go a little bit farther, and we get to track number 3, it's a doe and a buck. They come across the road together. Is that a good thing when I've got that and it's just about the bro? Absolutely. That is good. Most of the time, especially if he's walking in behind her and tending her and kind of staying right with her all the time, there's a track I want to get out of.
How do you know if he's behind her, though?
I'm looking to see if his track comes on top of her. If she pulls up and does some feeding and he tends to circle out on the downwind side of her just a little bit. He will like guide her along, like a bull elk will guide along those cows. He'll just kind of hang out with her, not pressure her too much, especially if he's an older deer. And if she's just walking and taking her time, and he's walking along with her, taking her time, and especially if his track is a lot bigger than hers, I like that. Sometimes it's a big, huge doe and a fawn, right? You're looking at those, right? So fawns will act different, and they will not act the same as the buck does as they move through the brush. So as I'm walking on the track, I'm imagining that deer standing right in front of me and actually seeing on the ground. Try and do that, and after a while, when you get fooled a few times, you'll learn some of the little small nuances that I wish we had a set of tracks here and we could all just look at it and we go over it and look at it real close. It's a little tougher to explain it, but over time you'll pick up all these little small things. Junior, a lot of times, say it's a big doe and she feeds along and she's got Junior with her. She's a nice big one. We had one at the Pines last year, it was what, 180 pounds, right? That was a huge doe.
Big.
Occasionally you'll get them great big does.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Does tend to walk a lot more like a lady, like in high heels. I almost say like they're a lot more dainty and they're a lot more plucking their feet up, and they have a lot different gait than a buck is, especially an older buck. He's got the football player thing going a little bit. When he walks, everything's wide. It's with purpose. Deer do everything with purpose. There's something going on and there's a reason why they're doing what they're doing all the time. And as we start in and we look at these, I'm looking for the deer's attitude, what they feel like and how the two of them interact. If Junior keeps pulling off to the side and then comes back on Mom, and Mom's over here and Junior, like kids, right? Your kids, you take them to the park or something, what do? They bust off, run out here, go around, come back, right? If the smaller track just keeps doing that all the time, odds are good it's a fawn. Right? It's Mom is doing his thing and Junior's getting a little impatient. Junior maybe even stop and try and lay down once in a while. I've seen the fawn lay down and Mom's like, nope, not right here. She goes a little farther and Junior gets up and follows Mom a little farther. If I see that little small bed right here as I'm going along and then it gets up and they continue, definitely a doe and a fawn. If she stops and urinates and it's a big splash, that's good, right? In the snow, if there's a big huge splash, that's definitely doe. That's really, that's a good sign. You'll know for sure. And then if she gets into a spot where like a double hump, like there's a hump here and a hole and another hump, and she works her way right in between these two, say they're 50 yards apart or whatever, or even a big mass of softwoods and a break in between them and another one here, she'll either go up in here and come around this one and lay down, or she'll swing up and go onto that one. And now it's time to hunt. When I get right to, boy, they should be right here someplace, I'm changing gears. I'm slowing right down. I'm taking my time. I'm going. All I want to do is be close to them without bumping them. If the wind's coming through pretty steady and she's done one of these numbers, and when the wind comes over the top, it swirls, that's another thing to keep in mind. As the air comes over the forest and it comes over the canopy, and especially if it's green canopy, and then there's a break in that, the air will tumble just like water in a brook. And the deer love those spots to hang out, to lay down in, to set off from just a little bit, to stop and scent back check the trail. They'll pull into those places where the wind eddies. Deer bed you get to when you're out there this fall, and you look down and you see a deer bed. Ask yourself what the wind tends to do in that spot. You'll find that deer almost always lay down in a spot where the wind eddies. It's spinning all around. So if somebody comes along, a coyote, a hunter, a bear, something shows up, another deer, they can smell it coming, and they've got a better chance in one of those eddies. That's where the fish hang out, right? In a brook, they hang out where everything's swirly. So I'm looking at the woods, and they start acting like they're going to lay down, and I'm looking for that kind of cover, that little bit of flat spot, a blow down. The other side of the blow down, they'll hook a blow down and lay down on the back side of it, so they've got something in between them and their back trail a little bit. They take a jump, they've got some protection. All those things, I'm looking for those little things as I go along, and when it's just meandering and going slow, time to hunt. Just take your time. The next thing that I was hoping to get to, are there any questions on any of that? One other thing that's pretty important that not too much tracking talks about, and I wanted to get to a little bit of it, is like when you jump a deer. Have any of you tracked a deer and jumped it?
Oh,
Yeah, we're all
We're all in that category. Some of you that's happened to, I am always, as a deer tracker, I'm always very interested in listening to what the deer did after you got it up. When you kicked it, what happened next? This is key to me because as you begin telling the story, I'm going to start trying to figure out what I would have done, or what would happen next by the story unfolding. Some of you that jumped a deer, and then did you continue following? Any of you continue following your deer once you jumped it? And what did it do? You know, at first. Just ran good and hard. Big bounds. Yep. Did it go up or down or in thicker?
It went in thicker.
Yep. And it went uphill. Yep. How far did it go before leaping mode and went into, like, say, a trot, dog's trot kind of thing?
Quite a way.
Yep. Quarter mile, half mile?
Probably a half mile.
Half mile. Yep. Yep. How fast do you think the deer covered that half a mile?
Very short period.
Right. Like a minute?
Yeah.
Right? Yep. If he's running, say, 20 miles an hour, right? He's going to be there in a minute. Right? Now, if you think about it, if a deer just runs for a minute, and now we have to, and it's an hour, right? At a half mile an hour paying attention, you know, it's going to take us a half an hour to get out there. I don't really need to stop and take a break. It's going to take me a half hour to catch up to the buggy, right? Especially if he like winded me or he got a good, how did he, when he ran off, how did he run? Like, how did he notice you? Or
He just started off and then just went.
Yep, just took off. Yep, yep. It's important to watch when they take off and they boom, 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 whether it's a real rockety takeoff or just a big kangarooing takeoff. You'll see a lot of them do that big kangaroo thing. That last video we put out with the doe in the cut, and she goes, woohoo, woohoo. She's like putting on a show, and she's jumping extra high, and like, look at me, and I'm telling the whole deer herd, you're around here, I don't like you, right? She's doing that thing. If you get a deer that's doing that, they're probably not going to go very far. And I stopped her real quick and easy. Call, as soon as you jump the deer, call. It might hear you. It's worth a chance of it saying, huh, what? Right? I see something coming. I see something coming. Should I run? And, ooh, it looks like it noticed me. A lot of times, when you make eye contact with them, like, and boom, boom, boom. Are you coming? Right? Are you coming after me? Are you a threat? Should I wonder? Right? So I'll give him that little break right when I first see him going. I'll call to him right away. Call to him right off the bat. It's worth a try. Let's let it rest for just a second here. If it got a nose full of you, now it's going to run harder. Right? It's just going to, like, I'm out of here. If they got a good nose full of me, that's going to be different. And especially the second time they get a good nose full of me, now this is a whole new game. And that's the kind of the part I wanted to talk about is after you jump a deer and you get it to move and it's gone a ways, and now, did you catch up to it again? Did you jump it again? No. No. Just, yeah. Now, a lot of times you'll think it's gone. If you happen to be hunting in space where there's room enough, I would just tell the boys, okay, this thing's going. We've gone 200 yards and it's still going. Right when I first jump the deer, I'm gonna take the first 200 yards, I'm gonna go easy. I'm gonna hunt. Because it might just go 150 yards and go around something and stand there. Now, if I'm just taking my time and going real easy, and I'm just watching for that bugger, And especially if I'm still calling and he doesn't know what I was. He saw something, was a little worried, he had heard some calling, and he just jumps off a little bit and goes a couple 100 yards and stops. He runs for 15 seconds and stops. How many times have you seen deer stop and look back at you? Right? Millions, right? So you have to plan on that. He could just kangaroo off a little bit and stop. Now if I just take my time and I go up there hunting and I watch the track, always watch the track as far ahead as you can see, if you can see it. Take your time. When I'm looking through the brush, I'll do one quick swing with my eyes. I'll just real fast. Then I'll go through slowly and look it over again and look for little pieces of deer. And I'm not looking at the brush that's right in front of me. I'm looking at the holes behind it. I'm looking at the empty spaces behind the stuff that seems to be a wall in front of you, which it really isn't. And the deer's back here, and it's losing that one eyeball through that brush, right? You have to do kind of the same thing. As I'm moving towards, and I'm going up the track, and I kangarooed him, and he's just out around the corner. I work my way up there nice and easy. Every time I come into a hole, I want to look the hole. There's a spot where it could be standing. I want to look it over really good before I enter a hole. You will not have a deer inside of a hole, and it will not allow you to enter the same hole it's in. It will not allow that. It's out of there. You'll come in, and it'll go out, like guaranteed right off the bat. But if I stop before I get into the hole and I look it over good, as long as I don't enter, the thing will stand there. And there's been a whole bunch of them where it's 100 yards across that hole, and I get up to the hole and I start looking real good, and then sure enough, that bugger's standing right over there. He's watching and he's seeing a wall. But I'm looking through that stuff and right out there, and there he is. So that's paid for me pretty good. Before you enter it, look it over good.
You want to take a short break?
Yeah.
You guys good? Do you want a break? You guys want to keep going?
Well, I know them chairs sometimes are rough,
Just
but
one question
sure.
before you get on. You say when you call to them and you flat, and you use the term snort wheeze. I know what a flat is, I know what a low is. What is a snort wheeze and when do you use it?
Well, one time I'm hunting and I'm on crust and I get into these little small Christmas trees about this high, and I can hear chunka, chunka, chunka. I can hear a deer in the crust, and it's only about 30 yards away from me. So I grunt at it, and it grunts right back. So that's 30 yards. There's no reason to advertise my exact location. I made a noise, it made a noise, I know it's there, I'm not moving now. And it's wicked crust. So I'm just standing there, and I'm watching where that sound just came from. And then, chunka, 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 it's coming closer, and now it's walking real. And I'm expecting, and I've got it right on my shoulder, and I've got the barrel down at the ground right here, and all I've got to do is lift it up if I need to. And I'm watching. And the thing about here to the corner of the room comes walking right out of the stuff, and it stops, and it's a little 5-pointer, 2.5-year-old, like this. And every hair on that deer is standing right up, and he's got his ears cocked back a little bit. Steps right out into the hole where I am, and he's putting on quite a show. And he stops again, and then all the hair goes down. He relaxes, and then he's looking for me. And I'm standing right there in the wide open and you can't see me. And I just do a little tiny like that. And he goes poof, and the hair stands right back up, and he's not really watching anymore. And he goes back to that, I'm gonna take you. And he's cowboy walking, he's threat walking, right? That's a dangerous thing here to that distance right there. He decides you're it. I don't think shooting him will stop him. And I'm gonna get you doing one of those things. And he stops, and he goes, he blows the air out of his nose. It just rockets out of there, and it's like, get away from me. He's doing one of those. Back off. He's doing, and I've never seen that before, had never experienced it at that kind of distance. And he flared out his nose, and you can watch this on the internet. You can watch a buck do that. They call it a snort wheeze, and he just get away from me. And then he turns sideways a little bit, and he's showing me, and he's threatening me. Well, I've never seen that before, and I'm on a giant buck, not this little 5-pointer. I'm on a great big one. And here is this little bugger putting on a show and making all kinds of noise, and he's snort wheezing for me, and I'm like, okay. And I've got the barrel right there, and I don't dare take my eyes off him, but Mr. Big may come running in right here any second. I'm waiting, because all of a sudden that one could just come tearing right in here. I'm being prepared for that. and nothing happens. And he comes closer, and he walks up to a little spruce tree, and he does his horns on a spruce tree. This is what I could do to you. He's doing one of those numbers. And I'm like, you're not going to do that to me, and you're not coming over here. I start talking to him. Don't you come over here. And now he's fairly close. He's about here, the full body now. He's right there. And I've got the gun right on him. You better not come over here. And now the wind is blowing like right here. It's almost right at him. And he can't quite get a nose full of me, and I want him to smell me. I want him to understand I'm the person. And he, he's trying to get wind a little bit, but he's looking out of the corner of his eye, and he walks right, sure enough, right into the wind, and he gets a good smell of me. Whoa, that is not a buck. All of his hair, that threatening thing just goes right down, and all of his hair lays down, and he gives me one of these and says, whoa, ooh, he gets a second noseful. He gets a good noseful, and he jumps again, and I grunt at him. Oh, that was a mistake. Boom, right back again, forgot all about it, and came walking right back over. I just got rid of the bucket, and now he's coming, it's fairly serious. He's come even more, and he's stepped up a little bit more, but now I need to smell that again. And he's crossed my scent trail, he's on this side of it, so he comes back over to my scent trail again. Whoa, that's wolf, that is not, whoa. And it all lays down again, and again I'm watching for the other deer, and I'm not seeing anything, he's the only one, and I'm like, hey buddy, go away, just go away. Oh, the hair comes back up again, like leave them alone. When they got that, you just don't do anything, just pray they leave. And the thing finally turns, and he starts walking away, and the wind goes woof at him real good, and now he gets a good one, and boom, off he goes and runs. That snort wheeze, since then, I've used that on a whole bunch of different deer, and it has worked so good, and they only hear that from deer. Like, people rarely use that call, but it can be dangerous because you're picking a fight.
It also can have the opposite effect. If it's a smaller deer and there's a bigger deer in the neighborhood, especially like you're getting into the rut, they're boxing a little bit, and this little buck's got his butt kicked a few times, right? Chasing after the wrong girl, dude. And you come in and you snort wheeze him, he might not stick around. He might be like, oh dude, my bad, peace, I didn't know it was you, right? And he'll leave.
Sorry about that.
So but if it depends on the size of the buck and how they perceive you as to whether they why they might not leave or so. So if it's a bigger buck, a lot of times snort wheezing works great on like 200 big giant deer. They're like, yeah, you think so, right? And they come at you. Smaller deer, does do not like to be snort wheezed.
No,
right? That's like a dude being aggressive to a lady is not normally cool. They're not going to hang out, right?
Right.
So that can also be a kind of toss up, and knowing how big the buck is, it's risky, but it can pay off big time. Like how many times could you have shot that deer? Right? How many times does that work? Right? You had him there for how long? Just using that call, long time.
4 minutes.
Long time, right? It's
4 minutes.
It is convincing because we don't use it. It only comes from deer. Like if hunters never gobbled, and you were the first one to gobble at a turkey, right? They'd be like, that's a turkey, right? The only experience they've ever had with that sound is it being another deer or being another turkey. So naturally, that's going to work better on them.
The other one I wouldn't want to grunt at, the buck and doe that went across here, no grunting there. Because I've had quite a few times, especially when it's a mediocre buck or a smaller buck and he's got a doe, if I come along grunting like crazy, he runs off from her. He'll abandon it because I'm coming on pretty heavy, coming on pretty aggressive. The other thing too is, the doe, if she's been chased quite a bit, when they get into the chase phase and they're actually running after, and the younger bucks will run the does like crazy. They'll just, hey, come here, and they're just running around. And then when they finally get a little bit of a break, and this guy's finally a little bit tired, and he's leaving her alone just a little bit, and now I come along grunting, she's like, another one. Boom! I've had some does react so bad to calling because here we go again. They're just like getting pestered. And most of the time, that'll be in a thick spot. Because they during the day, especially like in Vermont, if they're being chased during the day, they'll go someplace where they feel safe. It's either a cliff, where there's no people, or a swamp, or some kind of real low, really thick spot to get away from everybody. And meanwhile, they're still being chased, and even during the day, they're being chased. So she's like, I'm not ready yet, but this is just so much, and she wants to run someplace where she feels safe. And a lot of them will go out and go around and come right back on their tracks. So if I'm seeing a choo-choo train of 2 or 3 deer, and especially 2 bucks in a doe, it's early, say it's early, and it's 2 bucks in a doe. This thing here, a 9-year-old, had a 5-pointer in front of him, and the doe was in front of all 3. They go across the same, almost the same exact spot he shot his deer last year, and all 3 of them go up in the woods. And the big one's in the back, taking up the rear. The doe's hopping and running and hopping, and the younger buck hopping and running after her. And the big guy's taking up the caboose, right? He's coming up the hill behind him. All 3 of them go up the hill. She goes a long ways from home. She runs straight and doe's like a mile circle or less. And she was getting out of her territory and goes way down and says, I've had enough of this, and she comes back. Meanwhile, I'm coming along behind, and I get and close that distance. And then all of a sudden, the choo-choo train comes back on its tracks and runs right into me. She sees me, and I scare her a little bit, and she jumps off. And then here comes Junior, boom, 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 and I grunt at him, and he pulls right up, and he goes boom, straight off. He doesn't even go with the doe. And then I'm waiting, right? Mr. Big should be taking up the rear. He'll be here in just a second. Sure enough, he comes right up through. I grunt at him. He starts whacking his horns on some trees and brush right there, and then comes out threat walking. I snort wheeze him. He comes right out, and I literally shoot him here to the door. Just come right up to me. And he's 9-year-old. So, like, there's going to be times when it's a good idea to call, and sometimes when it ain't. And if you don't ever try it, then it can't work. And sometimes you're going to screw up. Sometimes it's not going to work.
Hear it one more time.
It starts as they're doing this like, get away from me. And I've done literally just that sound right there. And that one, this one, that one, the one up there, and this one here especially, they all fell for that snort wheeze. Every one of them deer all fell for that. That just like, or they stopped. It stopped them from leaving, or it made them stand their ground and let me come in. And a lot of times it was on crust. They could hear me coming, but if I'm making noise and grunting and coming, they're going to stand right there. Especially if I'm like at a steady pace. I'm not sneaking. I'm just coming. They're just coming along. Like with the coyote, that's another one that was just perfect. Coming all the time and calling a little bit and watching and walking real deliberate. I'm not into that sneaking stuff. I'm no good at it. I am no good at sneaking through the woods and being quiet.
Basically, pretend like you belong. Because that's what a deer's doing. They're walking as if they belong. And if you come through and you... then they're going to know. Something's taking his time. But if you just... this is what a deer does. Then they stop. For a long time. And then it goes...
There's been a bunch of them too with the tipper can worked great.
Yep.
Doing that steady walking with the little tipper can, that thing's worked so many times. How many deer have you had the tipper can work on? A lot. Yeah, quite a few, like a lot. That has worked really good.
Then there's times you wonder if
It's working.
When you're playing with it.
Right? Yeah, it's like an empty stadium and you're just playing all day long and nothing's hearing it. And that's one of the troubles, especially low deer areas like Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, where there isn't many deer. And you may be calling and calling and calling like crazy, but you have to have somebody there to hear you. And I've had a whole bunch of times when the deer, they're down here and they're walking at 70 yards. And they're just walking and I'm calling and they can't hear me. They're making noise in the leaves or whatever, and they just can't hear me. And then I'm like, hey! And they stop. And then I call, right? Get their attention and then call to them. And spike horn, right? He's just, and I'm like, come on. And I don't want to let him like go by without at least trying to call to him or stop him. If otherwise they're just going to go by and you never want to see them. So worth a chance stopping them.
A lot of times when they're running and you're like, trying to think of a call, right? If deer's running, you go, yeah, right? They're running, it's in their ears, right? You have the wind, they're making noise. Sometimes, literally, yell at them. Hey! And they're like, what? And then that gives you a chance for them to stop. It gives you a chance to get a lane and see if it's something that you want, right? It's like, sometimes, like that, that's
do
work.
do the deer one.
Deer. Right.
Most of the time that's what he's doing. He's calling to me, Dad, deer.
That has worked 1,000 times, right? They're running away and you need to be so loud that they hear you. But also, there's been a few times you're like, hey, and they just keep running. You gotta go out there. You gotta try. It's worth a try to get them to stop. A lot of times you're not gonna make a convincing deer sound loud enough that a deer at 50 yards is gonna be able to hear you and stop. So like, just yell at him.
I always think my grunt sucks. It sucks when I'm hearing it through my ears, but from a deer,
They don't care.
it was pretty. And so it's like, it doesn't matter what it sounds like, it sounds relatively like a deer, because our voice is,
too. Like they're ridiculous. Deer. Our whole lives we're hearing this from him, right? I'm in Maine, first time out being in the big woods myself, right? I'm tracking, and there's a good track, right? I'm like, this is a buck, I know this, right? I'm following it, and there's this old like skid when they used to use dozers and they used to cut side on the hill, right? And I'm walking. There's all these evergreens, all these spruces and stuff right here, and I'm walking through the woods. The track's going this way, right? My buck is headed that way, and I hear this boom, right? Almost like a bulldog and a pig mix, like this boom, and I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, like, what in the hell is that? And I'm like, it must be another hunter or somebody down here, right? Because my whole life, that's a deer, not blah, 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 right? So I'm like, you know what? Whatever, I got a mission, right? So I take it, I go most of the day, and I come back, and I'm like, it starts heading back towards the truck, so it makes a swing, and I keep walking. I didn't think anything of it, and it's almost the end of the day, and I'm like, this patch of woods looks familiar. And I look up, and I was like, oh, there's my skid road. The deer was right here, right? And he was walking broadside, right? And it's like, just be investigative, right? They make weird sounds. Make weird sounds. It's gonna work, right? Try something. Get their attention. Get them to stop. A lot of times, big bucks only give you a split second. 3 max. 1, 2, 3. And most of the time, it's right when you stop or when you start walking, right?
That's when you're running.
So if you're pulling up and you have 360 degrees of woods to check, and you only have 3 seconds to check it, it's chin up all the time. That's why it's like knowing the attitude, right? If he's stopping a lot, you need to stop a ton. Go slow. Be willing to take an hour to get to the end of the driveway here, right? Because that could be the distance. If he's not moving fast and he's just meandering, go slow. You have nowhere to be. You're on his track, he can't hide. He can run, but he can't hide. You're on him. Take your time. I have screwed up so many deer. That wall should be here. Because I'm always in a hurry, right? Like, I'm gonna get him. Let's go get him. Let's go get him, right? And I'm enthusiastic. I want to go get this deer, but it's the pace and being in a hurry has screwed me 1,000 times. 1,000 times. And as soon as you start going slow, and I was like, oh, there's a deer. Pow. Oh, there's a deer. Pow. And it's like, man, I'm getting good at this. It's like, no, you're just paying attention, right? You're going slow and you're taking your time.
Being next to him, all you want to do is, like if you were God and you're looking down, and here comes the guy, and here's the deer, and you can see this whole scenario happening. Slow down. And when you get to right that point, yeah, you're God. You're saying, oh, go easy. It's right there. Right, you're almost there. Especially if you have lots of daylight. I will push it when I'm running out of daylight, and he's right there a little bit. I tend to go a little bit faster because I want to close the gap. The other time I might track faster is if the wind is at my back. The deer is going with the wind. And if I take my time, my scent travels everywhere ahead where the deer is. If I'm going with the wind and I'm tracking the deer downwind, and we're going along together, I pick up the pace a little bit more. I go a little bit faster right then, so that my scent doesn't have a chance to get down there and ruin it for me. Because sometimes the deer will go, and then turn and put their, and anybody following me, right? They're keeping them. And when you bust them and jump them, they'll love to run downwind and then stop. And as you start finishing up, coming to them, they smell you and away they go. And if you're coming really slow, that's the time when you're in trouble, right? If you're going really slow, the wind takes you down there way before you get there. They smell you and say, here he comes, and away they go. That's one of the things that can happen. So when you're deciding the pace of how fast to go, that's one of the times. It's sometimes real tough to explain. How many of you have jumped a deer repeatedly, like multiple times? And how many times?
3.
Like the most is about 3?
Yep.
Yep.
That's a lot.
Yep.
That's a lot. I jumped on like 7 last year.
Nice.
Wow, no kidding. Yep. 16 times I've hit one deer in a single day. That's a lot of. And we didn't really go that far. He just, I need to take a look at you. I need to see you. He was one of those bucks, I want to see you coming. And he'd do a hook and stop. So I'd come along and he'd have done either right or left hook. And it would usually be on the downwind side of the track. He would do one of these and then watch. And I come hitting him over and over. And it's like, oh, here he comes again. Oh, here he comes again. Oh. And he smelt me twice really good, I'm pretty sure. He blew real hard and I'm like, oh, I got you. Whoa, and off he'd go, right? The other thing is if you shoot at them too. You start shooting at them and they get wind of you, now this is a whole nother ball game. This is really what will separate things like crazy, because once they really understand you're after them, they'll pull all kinds of stunts. One of their favorites is to run to other deer. Oh, here comes Keith again. He's hit me and shot at me, right? And he hasn't got me yet, but he keeps coming and I keep smelling him and he is after me. I need to get rid of him. They'll run right up to other deer, walk through those deer, and then take off running. I've had a few really smart bucks that have been chased quite a bit, especially older ones, that'll try and get rid of you on other deer.
On moose.
Yep. So I'm going along, he's jumping like crazy, and all of a sudden he breaks to a walk. Woo, I hit the brakes right there. We come over a little hump, he circles a little. All of a sudden he does like a 90 in his track. He's been really hauling and running pretty good, and I hit him quite a few times. Then he goes, and then over here. When he does a quick 90 after you've been chasing him good and hard, or if you jump him and he's gone, say, half a mile, and he does a quick 90, he smells something. Another hunter in front of him, a doe over here, another buck, something. Something's up. And when they do a quick 90 like that, now I'm paying attention.
Attitude change.
Yep, there's an attitude change. Something happened. Which way's the wind blowing? Is it coming from that way? Did he smell something? Right? I'm trying to say, why did he do what he did? And don't overthink it, but just kind of like, let's see, there's something going on. Now I'm hunting real slow till I get down there, come around the corners, and I can see a deer. So I look it over good, fall. And then wait a little bit, watch a little more, and oh, there's another one. Look at that one, oh, that one's fall. And oh, there's another one over here. That's got to be him, right? I'm thinking that, right? You out there? No, that one's fall. Okay, so we're just going to stand here for a minute. Got the gun, watching everything. The wind's good. We're pretty good watching. They all are like not looking around. I'm watching their behavior. If he was there and he was real nervous, they'd be looking at him. But they're not. They're calm. Been a little while, been a half hour since I've hit him. So I move in there nice and easy, and they all go, hey, somebody's here. And off they go. I follow the track right in, and he's taking off. And try to get rid of me on that. That's another real common thing they'll do. I've had quite a few who jump in the water, go across the river, or even run down the river for a ways, and then up on the bank, or run down the river for a ways, stop, and then come back up this direction, and then jump off over here, sometimes an hour and a half, trying to figure all that out. The river's big water, right, and you gotta check, and finally up over here, and the way it goes. All those things will happen a little bit sooner or later. And you can tell the bigger ones when they've been chased before. They don't run real hard. Real big ones that have been chased a lot, they don't run hard. They don't ever run hard. Just take that 5 or 6 big huge jumps, get out of sight, and then go to the dog trot and just maintain it. Just maintain that and just keep hauling. And they'll go and go and go. And that 260, that's what we like to do. That one was just sayonara and never look back. And if he doesn't find anything, just keep going. And you don't get those kind of deer. Some of those, you just don't get them. You can chase them forever and nothing happens.
Alders. Seems like you're getting alders and you play circle.
Yeah.
You're saying, God, I wish I had another guy with me.
Yes. Yeah. And that's where the double teaming comes in.
Yeah, if you're on the second day, he didn't come out, and they'll stay in there, the doe hook into them, and it's water, water, water. They used to get dogs off them, so they always hit the water.
Yep.
You're in this stuff, and then you can't see from here to here.
Oh yeah.
You can hear them sometimes.
Yeah.
And you're like, damn.
Yep, right, and they see that right through that one little thing, they see that movement, and they blend in down there, they'll blend in like crazy. Especially that brown swale grass, they seem to blend into that something wicked. I hate swamps and flat ground. I like mountains and corners and humps, because you've got that hiding you, and you come around it, and bang, that's worked so good. When you're one-on-one at stuff like that, they get you. They are just so good. They're so good. Any questions?
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a quick break, and after this we're gonna do mostly Q&A, keep the last section that's super open-ended, anything you guys are wondering, specifics, because we wanna make sure that you guys are getting what you're wondering, answered. That way we have some tools to get it done and get one on the wall.
Take a quick 5-minute break or so.
Yeah, 5
Kind of
minutes.
giving out a lot of good information.
There's always more. I know more.
Hi Ariel, hi Fred, hi
I know,
Cameron.
I'm sitting here.
Oh, Lena too.
I can grab one.
Years ago, he like sitting there all the time. Bulking up. Try one of them.
Doing a 5-minute break. We have a very bad connection apparently. This has been 136 minutes. Dude, good for you guys. You're holding out. Holy shit. Wow. Nicely done. It's been 136 minutes. Done. Right there.
You know there was 97 people watching this at the same time? No, they've had consistent 97.
So yeah, when we get back, I don't know if you guys saw the comment, we're gonna do a Q&A. So if you guys want to ask a question, feel free to ask it. Just say where you're from, and then put your question in, and then we'll get that answered. Ask Cocoa Puff a bunch of questions. He doesn't feel comfortable talking, but make him ask him.
Maybe call like crazy and then take a good break.
I'm not young like this.
Here you are.
I'm old.
Yeah. No way. Yeah, well, good luck. I probably
$100 chasing deer.
Well, for most people, the problem is they don't have any ahead of time to learn how to do it. That's all it is. Well, like if you were just starting out right now, and you're like, no, it's
Say hi Ariel, hi Cameron, hi Fred. Hi Kaylee, you can't see her underneath this hat, but there's like 95 people watching.
I'll try it. That'd be good. Well, you want to shoot a good one this year. Oh, yeah. And you can use your This distance in the woods can be whether you see it.
Right there, 40 yards. I go like this. There it is. Doing a yellow bird. I take them off on the way out with him. But I don't move.
Okay, hold on, everybody get in the
Have fun. Good luck to you. Yeah.
Good to see you, Bert. I'm seeing Gary here in 2 weeks. Say hi, everybody.
Oh, no, Sam, she's here.
Stop down on Sunday, you can't. 30 minutes. I'm Byron.
Sounds good. My son called Turkey. And for 4 days, I can see them. Within a week and a half. And then I started seeing the and then just and I can see the stuff driving. I went to cheese and we start coming back. Because it's dairy, the human body is not drink milk from other animals. No other animal will so the body is always going to so it acts so which is why sometimes we decide that it always causes the body and then to
You might as well at least look at the other people. Hello, other people.
We gotta maybe put Mr. Rogers on. I mean, you can put that on right now.
Make note of the change you're going through. Oh, you wouldn't use it? I wouldn't work. I tried. If you go from the hurt, exactly. You go, you're gonna go for years without a big deal. But you'll know if that's what it is. If it's not, if nothing changes, you know that's not the problem. I went 30 days, turkey 30 days without it, and I started eating slowly. And then watch what happened. 3 days after.
We're putting on the jerk.
No, I haven't. And wine spike.
How many years is that?
Oh yeah. We've been in Maine 3 years. Okay.
Let's wind her up.
Let's get her right.
Do we want to move this a little bit or just leave it? Do we want to move you guys? I don't know if we want to move you.
Yesterday we drove with the storm. Only goes about 3 miles. Landing at the end. Small bug and a big bug all over the road.
This was my hunt.
So we're up here about noon.
Monday or Tuesday?
So I started walking up it yesterday, just
Right before things.
and
Just before Thanksgiving.
the deer went up in there about a quarter mile and kept going, all three of them.
We were expecting a whole big snowstorm
Buck tracks that we've been
the
around.
following day.
Rubs, usual.
This is a
We
Monday.
got back out this morning to come back, and we just started up the road, and there's a fresh buck track going across and going down to the bottom of the track. I thought, well, it's bad. So we drive farther up the road, and there's a fresh track going up on top of my track last night, yesterday about noon. So I came out, came down and went back up, and he's back up in the same way again, because it's a track on top of mine.
They've got 3 bucks in this one spot.
Really, the first track we came across is the fresh, and it goes down to the crap where they want to go. We're back to about 10:30, 11. So I'm back down in the junk. I didn't really want to go in the junk, but it makes sense that he would be down in here during the day. So he's a road warrior, or a pig. He did grow his horns once, and he checked out some old rubs.
Those rubs are about 50 yards from a road.
Yeah, I lost that. Like I had earlier, even though I think he's still right in this spot right here. Because there's some giant wood out of this big wall.
Now it's real soft in there. You lost your TV. There it is.
That's big, fat, but holy.
Now, we knew the snowstorm was coming and this deer was down low. So I told Casey, I said, go, he's already shot a deer and he can scout for us a little bit. So I told him, go down low out of the mountains, go down to your town a little bit. Because I want you to have a look around down there and see if you can come up with a buck for us to hunt down there. Now there's 3 bucks in this spot, 2 of them are about 160 pounds, and then this one here is just about 200 or so. He's bigger, nice, big, heavier, at least a 3-year-old, or better. And I don't want to hunt a buck that's at least 3 years old. It's like the Monday before Thanksgiving, so we're about to get snowed on like crazy. And this is a pretty good deer. We were on bigger ones, but this one here would be good at the end of the season. So I've followed him across 2 different roads. He's made a dead loop on me, and I spent an hour and a half finding out about the dead loop, and now he drops down into the bottom, rubs his horns just before the main road, and then the giant has also come to that same rub and rubbed on it too. So I bailed off the 160, 80 pounder, and now I'm on the bigger one because that's a nicer deer. And right off the bat, as soon as I saw that, I said, ooh, we're all done with that one. Look at this thing. And it was a little bit fresher. He crossed the main road and went out in this swamp. This swamp right here is about 1.5 miles square, both directions. And there's real beaver ponds and just wet and lots of that spruce. And a lot of the bigger trees have all rotted off and died. So much of it's dead. And it's also too, a little bit of crust, and there's a lot of ice everywhere. Like every time you put down your foot, you bust through a watery ice stuff. So you can hear me coming quite a bit. Walking along and calling and grunting and adjusting 7 times that day, and I couldn't get a shot.
Well, we found the monster I was chasing yesterday. This guy looks like a doe.
It's the following day.
He's going uphill, and Jimmy and I are going to shoot him. He's right here. Don't even dare to slam the carriage over because it's fresh and he's right here.
So Jimmy and I he's come out of the swamp finally, and he's going up into these like red planted pines. That's a spot where you can't see real good. You may track bucks to a spot where you can't do anything about it, and you just gotta kick them out.
You can't tell the snow so hard if we go over or if you walk down it fresh, I don't know. But still in the track pretty as fast as we can go, so Jimmy went back to the rig, and I'm gonna take the track and just go as fast as I can.
This is about 11 o'clock.
I'm going to do something. Bitch, you can't take a scope clean if I've been thinking I'd grab Casey's pump. But anyway, either way, it's just me and Jimmy today. Gonna do what we can. The freaking snow is just getting deep. But I'm just gonna try and go as fast as I can. See what happens.
Now this buck, you can pause it here too if you want. This buck had a habit. He laid down in front of me on the first day twice. He had a habit of going out a ways, coming back on his track, then making a hook and laying down. Almost every time he did this like that, he did that shape almost every time. And wherever he laid down, there was a bank. Now he did this 3 times in a row. He laid down on a little bit of a high spot after he had done a half circle, but he also went out and stood there for a while. You can tell that deer went out and did his double and said, I've got to lay down. Then he turned around and went back on his track a little bit and then did the hook and laid down. And he did this 3 times in a row, and every time it was on a bank. Now we're at time number 4, and there's this little bit of a bowl right in front of me, and I look down and I see where he came back on himself. And I said, oh, it's right here. I've probably already screwed it up. And I see the track coming around the bowl, and it's all thick right here, and the bank is right over here, 30 yards. And I almost don't dare to look. I hope I haven't messed this up. But the snow is so deep and it's coming down so quick, it's filling in his track for as fast as I can follow. So I need to keep moving right along. I lean out a little bit and it's like, ooh. So I look at what's going on in the ground and I'm watching as far ahead as I can, and it's like right here. But I can't just go in there because he's going to go out the backside and I can't shoot. You want to stay with his shooting lanes all the time. So I have to swing it. I have to, and I don't want to, but I'm going to stay ready and I'm just going to swing it. So nice and easy. It takes me about 20 minutes to go, here to my lift outside. It takes me 20 minutes to go that far. Nice and easy because that thing is right on this bank and I am just peeling that bank over it. He is right. And I'm literally looking right at where he is. I'm looking right at, I can't see that thing. I'm nothing. And I go around and I come up the bank nice and slow. And I'm easy, and I see his track, and it's right, and then I look, and there's his bed right there. And I don't dare to look at the bed. I'm like, it's probably going to be boing, right? And I look at it, and he's walking. Oh, he's just on his feet, and he's right here. When a deer walks away from a bed, so I'm just standing there, and I'm thinking, I need to film this. But he's probably right here, and I'm just peeling. I can't see anything. So I take the risk and I take out the phone and I put the thing away. Literally the deer's here to walk on me while I do that. And I put it back in and there's a skid trail and a buncher cut right here. So I need to look down that buncher cut. So I lean out into it and there's his tail, boom, and over he goes. That one jump just like that and it's gone. And it's like, oh. And that's his track walking down that skid trail right there. And that thing is literally standing right there. Of course, he jumps off. Nothing I can do about it.
Went back to camp. Got brand new clothes on. Thanks for the jacket.
I was soaking wet.
And gonna do some peeling in, see if we can run more. He's kind of going easy. He's in the bottom here, and Jimmy's out in front of me about a quarter mile or so. Maybe. See. He's going kind of easy.
Now, I have not been able to get a good look at him or get a shot at him, and I just can't do it myself. And I said to Jimmy, I said, we're going to have to pinch this thing. We've got to pinch it. We've got to do that a few times and see what's happening. So we get in the bottom and I kick him out of there and he goes right across the road and he shoots off and out of the swamp. Finally, he's out of there and he shot out across the road. It's still snowing like crazy. There's nobody hunting. The snow's deep. How deep was the snow? Like,
Right, almost to your knees.
yeah, it was just about to our knees. And he's kind of had enough of walking in it, and he's soaking wet. I'm really soaking wet. It's what, about noon maybe? It's about noon or so, and I said to him, let's go back. We're 7 miles from camp. Let's go back, we'll change your clothes, have something to eat, and we'll just come back. We'll give him a minute. You know, he's just shot across the road and got up there. I don't think anybody's going to come along and take the track. Just let him go. So we go back to camp, we change and whatnot, and we almost stayed. And then I'm like, Taylor would tell me to get up and get going, right? So, okay, so we jump back in the rig and we go back out to the track, and sure enough, and Jimmy swings out through and takes the track, And I'm coming on top of it out here, and he swings out, and I said, if you hit the track before I do, you just start right in front of me. So he swings out, and I'm coming on the track, and sure enough, I come onto his tracks, and he's still going. So I peel off from him, and he's still going, and the deer's going nice and slow and easy, and we're doing that, and I try and get out ahead a little bit, and I come right to him, and we meet each other. And he's like, man, it's close, we're getting close. And I'm like, all right, so I peel back off again, I'm watching the terrain, and I'm looking for that little bench thing that he likes to lay down on. We're gonna play that game one more time, fourth time, right? This ought to be a charm. And Jimmy's coming along nice and easy, and we made a huge mistake. We should have filmed some of the snow, where I left an arrow in the snow and told Jimmy to keep going. I had done one of these, and I left a little smiley face, and the snow was this
Smiley
thick.
face with an arrow, and it's a wall of snow you can't even see. Yeah, he
Go in
don't wanna go through there.
Yeah,
Basically,
I don't want to go in there. Oh, it's terrible. Go ahead, Taylor. So Jimmy takes the track, and he comes to the buck's bed.
See how big that bed is right there? When your gun fits in the bed, it's a big deer. Pretty sure that was Rodney just shot. We've been on a buck all day. And with any luck, he connected. Track goes right towards the shot, so he kept swinging that around me. And I'm thinking, we got a deer down. But you know, in a little bit.
It worked. He just came right up to me. I couldn't film it because he was coming right at me.
Did you get him?
He did it, Jimmy. I got it. He come running right up through the woods right to me.
All right, I'll be along.
Well, the buck did his donut, laid down, and as Jimmy come along, he saw him, but I was standing right out on the other side, and the thing came right up to me.
Congratulations, Rodney.
Wow, that last shot, he went right hand over end. What a big boy. Oh, he's a big boy.
Now the buck,
Jimmy got him up and he came right to me. Oh, that worked out good. Boy, that'd have been a nice one on the camera, man. There was one little open spot and he come right up through it.
and we didn't have any cameras because the boys had all gone back. They had work to do. And he comes right at me through the brush, stops for a second, looks out around the
Good thing
corner
we
of the
came
tree,
back.
boom, and then he ran here to the door a little bit more, and I got another one in him, and he fell over.
I followed him yesterday for quite a while, and I just couldn't catch him. And he kangarooed away, and so Jimmy and I went back today. It snowed 6 inches, 8 inches last night. It's a lot of snow. And the bugger come up through across the road, and I followed him. And I followed him till about noon, and then I was soaking wet, and I got him up 3 different times. And I didn't think he knew what I was. And then he swung out around and dropped back down towards the road. He crossed the road, and Jimmy tried to get in front of him. And then finally, I'm like, we got to leave him alone for a little bit. And I'm soaking wet, so Jimmy and I went back to camp. We had a little something to eat. I put on Taylor's jacket and his clothes. We got back up here.
Thank you.
It was 2 o'clock when we left camp, so it must have been 2:30 when we started back in on the track again. I started the track. Jimmy took over, cut me off, and came down in the bottom. I got down in, I got me off again, but I left the track right there, and I put an arrow for him to keep going. And I swung out about 400 yards, and he come right up the hill to me. Oh, it's a big one. What a beauty. That's a beauty.
Mr. Rogers.
That's a big Maine buck right there. Nice big Maine buck.
Now he was down in town almost, so we named him Mr. Rogers. He's from the neighborhood.
Go back out. I'm like, well, you don't get him on the couch. Let's get back out there. Just keep going. And then to see him coming up through the woods, what a sight. I can hear Jimmy coming. I'll turn my other camera on.
So what he did, I went down through there. There's a big cliff right there. See that big cliff? Don't look like it on the camera. He laid down right up there. And I was coming up the back, and he was laid down up there, and he came down through here. And there's his track going up through there, and Rodney was up there, and Rodney got him. So we're gonna go see what he looks
For
like.
the most part, that's beautiful woods right there. That's nice. You can walk through it, not get too much snow on you, and it's nice woods. That's the only piece of nice woods on this entire hunt. The rest of it was like this. It was a wall of snow down your neck all day long. When you go to the hardest place there is to kill a deer with so few, hunter success rate in Maine is like 6, 7, 8% at best. When you go to some place where it's the hardest possible thing to do it, and then keep up your enthusiasm with the snow down your neck and the brush like this and never seeing a deer, and when you do, they go poof and they're gone. After a while, your insides are like, why am I doing this? This is just so much work. It is the hardest possible way to get a deer. But when it all comes together like that, oh, is this something? And it could very well be a buck of a lifetime too. And that was the whole point of going up there. Is just you could see something that was just phenomenal, and they were harder to come by around here.
There's this running track right up through there.
Now it's not too far from dark right here. It's about 20
Yeah,
minutes or
see
so
Rodney?
from dark. I would say this was just after sunset, right here.
That deer thought he was smart today, but we outsmarted him. Oh, look at them horns. I'm naming him Jerk because he's a jerk. Look at that. Look at that.
Ain't that big, Greg?
Look at that.
Ain't that a dude?
And we didn't think he had a lot on his head.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Now he was going through stuff like this, and you'd say, well, it's not a big rack, because he's just driving himself through the bushes. Well, it was a big rack anyway.
That was the thing to do, keep hooking me. I see a little smiley face and arrows in the snow over there. Yeah. Yeah, I wrote 10-4 right beside him.
And right in there's hardly any snow. Lots of canopy and hardly anything on the ground.
I'll go out there, I saw the big trees in here, there's huge trees.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'll swing out around 400 yards, and swing around and look for the good woods. And then if I bump him, he'll go right back down the track to you, or if you bump him, he'll come right up to me. And we'll just keep kind of pinching him, looking to pinch him. And I'm like, nah, and it feels like, nah, and I'm coming down the hill, and I'm saying, boy, I should be closing the gap. It should be any time now. I look up, and I see, boom, I see big dark movement, and then it steps up a little bit more. I said, oh, it's a deer. And I saw this, right? It's sticking right up. And he comes a little closer, and he steps out around the tree, and he looks right at me. And I'm like, oh. And by then, so I'm almost squeezing on his neck. And then he put his head, and he walked right into the hole. I said, okay, right in front of the shoulder. He's quartering towards me, and I put it right in his front shoulder. And he came up through here, just kind of hopping pretty good. And he's right in the scope, beautiful. And I'm like, well, shoot him again. Boom. And I hit him like right here. And he went right there, and his horns dug right into the ground.
Yeah.
And he kicked right up in the air. And look at the dance he did.
Oh, yeah. He did the dead deer dance.
Yeah, way up in here, and then kaboom, and he landed right there. Yep.
Another 8-pointer.
Yeah. Taylor was wrong about the 9.
Yeah.
But
Taylor, it's an 8 again.
yeah. Oh,
But it's a freaking hog.
Now, when it's just about dark like that, that's the time you want to get right to gutting it and get everything that you need to do in the daylight, and that's another reason to carry the flashlight. If everything goes down just before dark, and now you've got all kinds of, you've got to drag, we ended up dragging, we didn't get the reporting station until 7, right?
No.
7:30. I mean, and we did mess around filming a little bit. I can't remember what it was now.
3/4 of a mile.
Yeah, 0.8 or 9, on the GPS. We had to drag them quite a ways. And right in there is nice dragging where we had to go through. Oh, that was wicked. And
That was the best woods we were in.
yeah, this right here was the very
Just
best
outside
woods.
of that, you couldn't see from here to Casey or from here to the wall.
Yeah,
If
so
you could see
thick.
from here to the wall, you were in good woods.
Yep. And that's the other reason that I got there, because if Jimmy hit him and he came out in the open, I've got the best chance for a shot. Keeping your shooting lanes all super important. You want to stay where you can shoot all the time. If you're in the jump, you can't move your gun, you can't do anything about it. So, like if you're coming to a big thick spot and the deer's gone into that thick spot, I'm not in a big hurry to jump right in there with him, because if I get in there with him, he's going to shoot out the other side and I got no shot. I'm better off to swing it just a little bit. Stay where you can shoot all the time. And that was a good spot. I could see 60 yards maybe in a few spots right there. And that was 3 times what we normally were in all day. Here to the door was as far as you can see most of the time. So it was tight in there. Most of Vermont woods are beautiful.
Compared to
200
this.
yards, it's nothing to see 200 yards in Vermont. You can see a long, long ways. They're kind of what I call people woods, right? It's beautiful, and like you say, boy, what a classic place to see a nice big buck coming running down through here, but they never do. They're in this stuff or on the cliff, right? They're in that tight stuff all the time. And if they are out in them wide open, most of the time they're on a run. Somebody's already kicked them and they're just flying through that open, you know? But anything like that where it's different from the other terrain around you, like those different areas. I want to be on the edge of a terrain change all the time because that's where the deer are. They're on the edge of the cliff so they can jump off and go and run off from you, or at the bottom of it where they can run up and get away. The edge of a field, the edge of greenery and hardwoods, right? Where evergreens and hardwoods come together, they're on that edge. The edge of a clear cut. They're on the edge all the time, and I want to be on the edge all the time. And I also want to look down and see tracks on the ground. If there isn't tracks on the ground, I'm out of there. I will not hunt when there's no tracks on the ground. I'm gone. And that's one of them spots there where pinching, that's the only way we were going to get that deer. That deer was in a spot, a high pressure spot. There's an outfitter that hunts right there. Lots of people hunting there. I don't know how many, we saw more rigs at that location than we did anywhere else the entire season. And that buck was right there with probably 60 guys sometimes, and he never got shot. But he was in that jump, and he didn't want to leave it. He was like a big rabbit, and he just go round and round in that garbage down there. And truthfully, there was no way you were ever going to shoot him if he stayed in that garbage. He would just keep going around you, and you just you couldn't do anything about it. You couldn't close the distance, and it would just be like, we got to get him out of here. So on day 2, I chased him real hard, like as fast as I could go. You're not staying in these woods, you're leaving. I don't care, you're not staying here. So I, right through them beaver ponds and all that junk, I just kept coming and coming and coming, and finally he said, I'm out of here, and took off out of it. But he didn't go very far. It's trouble. All the woods around there are beautiful, and people hunt it like crazy, and he has no other place. So he'd go out there for a loop, and then boom, right back in the junk again. Just a big giant rabbit. But he had a pattern, and he kept doing the same thing over and over. And if you can exploit that a little bit, and sometimes they're going to be in a spot you can't do anything about it. They're going to lay down in a tight spot, and you're not going to be able to see them. You're not going to be able to shoot at them, or you can't get close to them without them knowing that's the way it is, and you just got to get them up. Just get them up and get them going. Get them in, hopefully, another spot where you can do something about it. That buck, I moved 15, 16 times in one day. When I finally got him where I could get a good look at him, I couldn't see that extra point we needed. It was this. Giant main beams, and looked like one little brow point that hardly looked like an inch long, and I let that thing go. I couldn't shoot it. I couldn't see a fork on it. And I chased that thing for 2 solid days in Vermont, and I just could not do it. And he kept looking back, and I saw him over and over and over again. One day it was 12 times. He was starting to figure out I was trying to kill him. He would really shift. Wow, here he comes again. And off he'd go. And boy, that thing would run wide open in craziness like a doe. Just go crazy. Some deer are really crazy at running. They run hard and run fast and run a long ways before they look back. And a lot of they're not the fun ones to chase. They just don't stop.
Your more experienced bucks, a lot of times, they just get some distance between you, and then they slow down and stay steady. And most of the time, the ones that like run and really hammer are really kind of younger, inexperienced deer that they're more scared, and they're like, and they just want to leave town. That's another way you can kind of get a little bit of info. So, okay,
have you got some questions?
Yep, we have a bunch of questions online right now, so we'll actually put some of those up, and we'll do some Q&A real quick. But let's do a if you had to give your one thing for tracking. What is your number one thing for tracking? Your number one tip or whatever. So your number one. We'll do everybody's number one.
I've always been the mental game. You have to keep your brain on straight. If you lose it for some reason and you start talking yourself out of things and saying I can't do this, or I'll never catch them, or I'm just too tired, or you quit or something, that can cost you a deer. And making them decisions and staying on your mental game is like, that's always been key for me. And when I've watched thousands of hunters come in the door and talk to them all, and the guys who consistently shoot big deer year after year, they're consistently successful, their minds are on straight all the time. They never let up. They got a good attitude the whole time. They never stop going. They hunt till the end. and they just, you know, they're just driven, and mental game's the number one for me.
Case?
Take your time. I'm gonna say take your time, because
Yep.
it's go slow, go steady, but don't be in a hurry. As soon as you get in a hurry, that's when things go wrong. As soon as you're in a hurry, oh my god, I keep hitting all these traffic lights. Same kind of thing. So and basically that's just changed our deer hunting.
Oh, yeah.
When we had the perspective of going slow, just taking our time. There's no point in rushing, because it's gonna work if it's gonna work. If not,
I let them be beagles. They would, oh, I'm gonna go get that deer, roar, 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 and they'd go running off and chase them and bust them and scatter them all, and they'd come home, tongue hanging out, and I'd say, how's it going? And they're like, I'm getting tired of chasing them. I'm like, yeah, slow down, shoot them.
Go, Jim? What's your number one hunting, tracking thing?
Pay attention. If they start feeding, it's the time to start paying attention, watch, look at every little spot in the woods.
The beaver. What's your number one for you? Most important.
Drum roll.
Don't rate your success by getting a deer. The only way you feel successful as a hunter is actually getting the deer. More often than not, you're no longer going to be successful. You're putting pretty big parameters to setting yourself up for failure. Where when I go out in the woods, that's me being successful. I work my ass off all year long. This is my vacation. I've earned this time. I am successful. And when you go out in the woods with that I am already successful mindset, you're just going to attract more opportunities your way. Whether the deer stands there and lets you do whatever you want to do. Every deer I've shot, I've literally walked up to them. Just, hey, there we go. It is that simple, only because I've set myself up for that before I even leave camp. I'm here with my family, my friends. I'm already a successful hunter. I get to go out in the woods, do my thing, and make it back to camp. That was a successful day. I made it back. So when you measure your success, make sure you don't limit yourself on your success by solely, I have to shoot a 200-pounder, otherwise I'm not a successful hunter. That's just the thing. It's hunting, not harvesting.
Yep, totally. And Taylor?
What about Hollywood?
Yeah.
I would have to say definitely two-man teams. At least, I've never been concerned with making too much noise or too much movement through the woods at once. The bonuses and the pros of hunting with a team outweigh the cons. Every 2 sets of ears, it's 2 rifles, right? The amount of deer that he and I are going to take down together versus when we're alone is literally double, right? It's more fun, you miss less stuff, you create better memories. It's like if you took everything good about hunting and doubled it. That's literally what hunting in two-man teams is. It's awesome. Plus, you can also film it, because you guys know I'm crazy about filming stuff all the time. It's way better all the time. You know, sometimes you want to go alone, and sometimes you just need your time or whatever, but I find that I'm more successful if I have somebody with me, right? They pick up. When I'm looking this way, he's looking this way, right? If I'm following the track, he's looking for deer, right? That is one of the awesome things, especially when you're like really close in skill level and experience or whatever, or if one of you is more, you get that hands-on learning all the time. It's like literally taking a mentor out with you, because like everyone in here that I hunt with has been hunting longer than I have, right? So I literally am like, okay, teach me your ways all the time, and I get to absorb that. Plus I get to help them on their hunt, and they get to help me on mine. It makes it way better all the time, two-man teams. It's boring when you do it by yourself.
A lot of times we end up just laughing all day and just
never seen
make so much noise and like a bunch of hamsters out there
Taking a
just
nap.
laughing.
Oh yeah.
How many times have you heard them in the woods? Jimmy comes on the radio and says, I'm listening to your 2 squirrels down there.
It's 9 o'clock, so those that have a long drive, they're gonna leave, go ahead. If you've got questions, we're gonna just kind of rapid fire as much as we can. And last time we went to 1 o'clock,
You guys can
No
head out when you want.
No limits.
1 o'clock.
Yeah, head out when you want.
Yeah. So,
Any questions? Anything you guys are wondering? You know, while you got us or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you guys use any sense? Do anything with sense?
Most of the time, no. Mostly because I think like you'd probably be more successful with sense if you were stationary.
Yeah.
And like even when like we get a lot of questions about like it's hard to track when you don't have snow, right? And we actually spend a significant amount of the time hunting on bare ground, but we're always moving, right? Especially when you have a really low deer population for the amount of space that you're hunting in. Sometimes sitting isn't all that successful. I mean, unless you're in a high traffic area with like a little spot where you cross or whatever, then like a scent could be pretty beneficial. But there are also sometimes where scents aren't necessarily, like there are some scents that are like legal, like doe urine or whatever. But we find
when
that
you can do it,
moving
I'd
too
take
much.
a tarsal blade, hook it to my boot off
Yeah.
the buck. That was either different from the area I was in, so they didn't know him. So he was unfamiliar buck to all the other deer there, or it was an inferior deer in woods that he was inferior in, and the bigger ones came and searched me out. See you later, sweetie. Bye-bye.
We saw that gentleman, he was walking in the woods and he had some tarsal gland on him, and this buck is just going up his track and just scraping all over his
Digging
track.
right at it, like that deer loved that. Just like, I'm gonna show you, and he did do that quite a bit. I never had any success as far as killing him under that situation, but I've had him follow me, and even been back the next day, and my tracks are covered with deer tracks. So they were sniffing it out during the middle of the night.
Right, they're checking it out.
And especially if there's snow on the ground, I think it's even more like they have a track to look at, and there's smell there too. And in the winter, they just kind of want to walk on top of tracks anyway.
Yeah.
If
It's
a
easier
truck track,
walking.
a person track, whatever, they hit it and go right down it. And that has worked a few times to get them to walk that way.
Yep.
But I haven't shot anything like or bought stuff and made a scrape or something like that. I know Roscoe Blaisdell in New Hampshire there, he does great with that. He makes mock scrapes, and like every buck in the woods goes to him. They just like visit them, especially like right now, as soon as the velvet's off, they're going to them things like crazy.
Yep.
Even the does are checking it out. What do we got here, really sniffing it over.
Yep.
And with Vermont now and some of the rules, you don't want something they're actually consuming. So, and I know there's some synthetic stuff, and even Roscoe has said that's worked for him too, I think. I'm pretty sure that's what he said. And as far as like sense on me of whatever I am or whatever I smell, I don't think you can beat a deer's nose. They're so good, they get one molecule of your breath. You're constantly putting out molecules nonstop. They smell any little bit of you. I mean, they take a drug dog and bring it into a warehouse and put 2 containers, plastic containers, inside of containers with Ziploc bags, and hide the drugs in a shelf 3 stories up, and that dog goes through that whole place and says right there. I don't think you can actually fool a deer, completely with the nose. But I think there's a lot of deer that react differently. Some that are really experienced, they smell one little bit of human in there, like, whoa. And then ones that don't know anything, they haven't had that many bad experiences, they don't react to it the same.
Yep.
And individual wise, deer vary like crazy. Some of them really, you scare them and they freak. They'll never come back again. Some of them bigger bucks, they don't ever come back.
No.
And then there's others that will investigate. Like local does, when something's new in their woods, you went and cut a tree, or you put a stand up, tiptoe right in there and check it all out. Like you put in a brand new stand or a brand new blind and put your camera on it and watch what happens that night.
Who's trip-trapping over my
Yes,
Yeah.
they come in and
Yeah.
what is this? Rodney was here. What was going on? What's he doing now? Right?
Yep.
And I've had him do it within 10 minutes of setting up a stand. 4 deer come right in checking it out. And the old local who has to tell everybody and warn everybody, right? The chief, she comes in. Most of our average doe in Vermont's a 5-year-old. So when you have average does that are 5+ years old and been around a long time, some of them, the last one was 20-something.
Yep.
20-something years old, incredible. And they're so experienced, and they're really good at patterning us. They're better at patterning us than we can ever be at them. They just, today, and they know. And if something's different and out of place, them buggers know it in just a little while. There's some sounds over there that aren't normally over there. Let's hook that. and then, gee, it seems okay, let's tiptoe in and check it, and they do, they're good. Deer are good.
Any other questions?
Terrence got a few.
Yep. Somebody online asked, when there's no snow on the ground, what's your plan for the day?
I'm gonna hunt edges, if it's real quiet, at least, listening wise, but the ground is noisy, leaves or whatever, I'm gonna work all the edges and call.
Yeah.
Like everywhere there's sun.
Yep.
I need to change to partridge hunting.
Yeah.
I go partridge hunting. It's like, oh, right there's one. I got two.
And there's a deer.
Oh, there's a deer. Look at that.
After you shoot
I like
the
to
bird.
go where I've never been. What's on the other side of that ridge? We're gonna
Yeah,
see.
explore.
Maybe an agent.
Yep.
And you could pick up something or learn about something you didn't know was there before.
Yep. See something different, and
Yep.
that's the chance for you to take some film to say, hey, look what I saw over here. Look at this cool waterfall.
This also goes in tandem when the weather's hot. Like a few years ago, Dad shot a tie rod, this buck right here. It was 65 degrees, right? There's no snow, and it's like, well, we need to go for a walk in the woods, right? If you're sitting, because it's hot, you don't really want to move all that much, the deer are feeling the same way. So if he's 200 yards away, and you're both sitting there, and you both wait all day,
nobody moves.
Nothing ever gets done. So it's like, when there's no snow, go for a walk. Cover some ground. You can just go nice and easy, keep your head up, because the beauty of snow is they stand out so much better. There's contrast to the color, right? You add this blank canvas, and now you can see all the rocks and trees and stumps and deer and moose. You can see all that really well. But when there's no snow and the brown blends in a lot better, you gotta go slow. And you might as well be moving, you might as well cover some ground, you might as well watch the trees go by. Instead of sitting there listening to your ears ring, when it's 65 degrees, watching the same patch of trees and nothing's getting done. You might as well move on days where there's no snow, just cover some ground.
The thing about tie rod was that buck had a special gait to him. He had a special gait, and like his front feet never landed inside his back feet. Most deer, they land right inside of each track. This thing didn't. It was offset, like he needed a tie rod adjustment, right? We're like, there's something wrong with that deer. Look the way he walks. And it was a stagger to all these steps. Now, he crossed this one landing 3 times. And this was the season before. Now, if I'm going to flip-flop around and just go out walk and go looking for something and just try, just roaming or still hunting nice and easy and calling and looking around, I want to do it where I know that there was one at least last year. Now, I wasn't 100% positive that somebody didn't shoot him, that he wasn't still around, but I said, if we're going to flip-flop and just go for a walk, we're going to do it someplace where we know there's a big one, or there was last year. Now, this is the beginning of the season, and we said, well, there was a big one, kept crossing this landing down here. Now, my neighbor, I told him, go down, give this a try, because this big, huge buck down there, and he's offset, we named him Tie Rod, go look for Tie Rod, because I always wanted to get a big one. So he hunted there only a little tiny bit, and he hunted next to there a little bit more. And we waited a week, and then I said, well, let's go see if Tie Rod's around.
Yep.
We didn't go 200 yards
we
from that
gave you your
landing,
chance.
and that buck was laying in the brush, 200 yards from that landing. We just worked our way up the hill a little bit. We come to a skid trail divide, and Taylor says to me, he says, well, I'll probably go this way. And I'm like, no, just a minute. I just got a feeling, this right here, right? And we work up, and we come to a little bank. We come over the top of the bank, and he says to me, deer, right? And it's this, whoa, whoa, and I'm like, whoa, hey, and he stops and boom, and pull, right? Only because we did that, and only because I listened to my feelings, and only because we were aware there was one before, and just listened to our guts, and just walk, and it was right there.
Yep.
Like right there.
Yep. It'll just feel right.
It'll just come to you.
It'll
It'll just come right along. And you want to make sure you continue that. Don't say, I'm not going to see anything. Don't feel that. Always work for yourself.
Yes, you're not gonna shot.
Junction City, Wisconsin, Bruce. Do you ever leave the track, and if so, when and why? Just like other than like circling barnyards, will you ever leave the track? Yes.
Yep.
But not often.
No.
When you leave the track, you stop getting information. Thank you. Right? Have a great night, guys. Thanks for coming.
Take care.
Good to see you.
You got early school.
Oh yeah.
That's okay. That's
Don't we
okay.
know? Because like if Casey walks to the stove and I'm saying I think he's gonna go for the door, right? And if I leave here and I can't see and I don't know, right? Now if the deer goes over here and stops, right? Now I'm like, I don't know where he could be. I lost the only stream of information about the deer that I had. But when you have a situation where the deer keeps like hooking, and he keeps going, like say you keep bumping him and he keeps hooking to the right and standing off and waiting for you. What you can do is if you see the behavior of him like about to hook, or you look farther down the track and you're like, oh, here we go, and you leave and he's expecting you here, and you can come around the corner, there he is, boom, right? That's an instance where it would make sense, but most of the time, stay on the track. Stay on the track, that's where you're getting all your information, and you don't have to worry about where he might be. All you have to do is look for him. At least that's the way I.
Except the barnyard.
Except for
barnyard, when there's a million tracks in the spot, 300 yards, and they've been running around there all night long, and it's just this big maze. And I'm not going to take 4 hours to cipher out every move he made inside that barnyard. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to swing on the downwind side of the barnyard, and I'm going to look for his track to leave. If I come across, if I start, right here, I pull up to it, the wind's blowing across here, I'm going to hook this downwind side. I'm going to keep looking in that barnyard. He might still be there. I'm going to keep watching, and I'm going to look for any track, and I'm going to hook the main part of the tracks. Just keep going around. In every loop where he goes out, he might go out and come right back into the barnyard again. But if I hit that, and he goes and makes a loop and goes right back in, I continue around the barnyard. Right? I continue going around until I find him leaving. And when he leaves and heads, most of the time I'll take it. If I've almost completed the entire circle and say I'm over here, I may finish it just to double check.
Just in case.
And then go right back over here and boom. And I'm in the middle that is just crazy. If it's really thick and you can't see well, you want to make sure there isn't any deer in there. I think there very well could be. But most of the time, you've got a track leaving, you just take it. Take it and leave. One other thing is, like, if you have a buck and you're tracking him and he comes to another buck track that looks identical and they cross directly over at each other, like an X, and neither one of the bucks sniffed the other track. They like walk, you know how you're walking normal and you walk normal? That the way that intersection would look, if the deer does that, odds are good that's him. If the tracks look identical and it's walking straight over, I never check my own tracks. I never look at my own tracks. A buck doesn't look at his own track. So if he goes over the top of himself, if he comes and does a circle and goes back over the top of himself, and I come along, I'm going to take the turn. I'm not going to stick with going straight across the intersection. I'm always going to take the turn, whichever way he goes, because this is a dead loop.
It's good odds. It's good odds.
Yep. We got a film I found on a throwback the other day here that we'll probably put out, and it's the mushroom buck, Taylor's deer, when he walked over his own track, and also too when he came to another deer, and he stopped and put his feet down and he sniffed, and then he went this way. He went, oh, that's not the way it was going, right? A deer doesn't know which direction the tracks are pointed, so he smells. Is the scent stronger this way or is it stronger that way? And he literally can walk down a little bit and say, nope, it goes this way. He turned around and boom, just like that. You can tell he's checking another deer. So if it crosses straight over and neither deer pay attention to each other, take the turn right there. It'll save you every time.
Yep.
Any questions that you guys have while I'm sifting through this on the comments?
Every time I go hunting, I always get up super early and I'm like stumbling around in the dark and like I need to be there. It seems like that might not really be that necessary, or?
The cool thing is deer are out in the woods all the time.
They're not going anywhere.
So they're there all the time. All the times I've ever been out in the woods late, like that, I didn't get in the woods till almost 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
Get out there, get out there, go out, and then it's like, oh, been in the woods 45 minutes, boom, there's another deer. And it's like, same thing, turkey hunting. We've got out, like, usually you get up, crack of dawn, you're like, oh, this is like a job. And then that one day you sleep in, and then you go out, you get your turkey. Same exact way. So you don't have to. You can if you want.
But you got to go with your feelings. If it feels to you, I got to get out of bed. I feel like I need to go. Then you should.
Sometimes I beat other people because I hunt on public land and I want to get up the hill like ahead of them.
Sure.
I mean,
First one to the track.
Ben, like,
that's right.
For sure.
seeing them and like heading them off.
For sure.
Early bird gets the worm.
But for tracking purposes, there's no real advantage.
My only suggestion would be when you're going out in the woods, you're going to go early. Go during shooting hours, because it doesn't do any good if you go out and it's dark and you jump the deer before you're able to actually.
Or you're sitting on top of this track and you found for like 20 minutes. You're like, can't take it yet.
Right.
And you're sitting here like.
This is what happened to me with a buck in New Hampshire. we were out. We just woke up and said we need to get out in the woods.
Right,
We got
brand
out
new
there,
snow.
and it was what, half hour before shooting,
Yeah.
or
It
more.
was just barely cracking, like you couldn't.
You look
see
into the
real
woods,
good.
it's black when you look into the woods. It was
Right,
so
out on the
early.
road, it was starting to get light.
And we were out of the truck, just kind of standing there waiting to kill time. And then
There's a nice track.
beautiful track. We're ready to take it. Okay, we can kind of start seeing. Well, we still got another 10 minutes before it's legal shooting time. And then the deer was laying down there watching us. Got good wind and blew and left. So by being a little too early, we missed an opportunity.
For one, we couldn't see the antlers good enough.
Yeah.
We could see deer.
Yeah, you can't
but we couldn't see the
identify.
antlers good
Yep.
enough. And the other reason that we didn't see the antlers good enough is because there was only one on one side.
He was
The
uniformed.
buck in the office right there with one horn.
Oh, yeah.
He comes across the road and he goes down in there a little bit and we come driving up the road first thing in the morning, let's go look for a track. And we go, boom, there you go, right there, right? Here we go, and there's nobody else out here, and let's just stay right here. So we put it in park and turn the Jeep off and sit there for a little while and then finally get out and we get ready to go and we're gonna go get this deer. Well, you know, let's just get in the woods. We'll just go on the other side of the ditch here and we'll stay in here for a while. So we go inside the woods and we get in there and stop and it starts getting daylight and I said, well, you might just well go ahead and load your gun, you know. So he loads his gun up and we're just kind of standing there a little bit and we hear, where you going? And I look down in the woods and oh, there's deer right there. And I said, oh, there he is. And boom, and away he goes.
Yep.
Now, when he's sideways, I see this. And when he turns towards us, he's got no horns, right? This curve, it's dark enough, I just couldn't see it. Then he turns like this, and I'm like, well, that's racker. I see horns, and 3 up here, right? Does that. I said, well, that's good. And you haven't shot too many deer yet. That's a beauty. We need to get that, right? So we spend the rest of the day, and then finally at the end of the day, we get it. But it goes to show how we felt like we needed to get out of bed. We did get out of bed. We got down there, but we don't go in the woods until we look at and we can shoot at.
Same thing.
We learned a lot right there. It's like, don't go in the dark. Right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt. It doesn't
Oh, yeah,
hurt.
like a lot of times we're not in the woods till 9 o'clock, right? Because like you're taking your time, right? And if everyone gets in there and like tons of other hunters go in there and stir in the woods with other hunters, right? It's not concerned too much about a safety issue. Most hunters pay attention, right? We don't have too many hunter accidents. We wear all of our orange, and if they're in there, they're stirring deer up. There's a better chance for us to see a deer and get a shot, have an opportunity to meet somebody else, help them drag a deer, whatever. You know, we're not necessarily concerned with competition as far as getting a deer ever, which opens up more opportunities.
We're more concerned about being sharp.
Yep.
You're gonna have your wits about you, right? Deer are deer 24 hours a day. They don't miss a trick. They
We're only
really
hunters
don't.
in the
And if I go out there and I'm all worried about what's going on at home or whatever, you know, I want to stay sharp. And if I'm tired, I'm not sharp.
Yep.
I'm not as quick. You've got to be right there, and you got to be really on it. And I want to be as sharp as I can. And as soon as like hunting turns into a job, and we're doing it every single day, right? We've got all the time in the world. And if you don't have all the time in the world, you may want to get out of bed, right? Because you don't have as many hours.
More
to go.
time in the woods is more chances to get a deer.
Absolutely. You're not going to get them on a couch. I mean, you got to go. But when you're sharper, you'll do better. And when they say, well, how is it you're so lucky? And I'm like, it's not luck, because luck is preparedness meeting opportunity. As long as I'm prepared and I keep as many opportunities coming my way, that's lucky? No, that's work, but it produces results, right? It's successful that way. So, like, as long as I keep having as many opportunities be able to come to me, and I'm prepared to meet every one of those, now they just keep showing up. It pays. That pays dividends.
Jim from Massachusetts, if you stumble across a barnyard, do you think it would be a good spot to set up a tree stand? Obviously, you're trackers, but just curious.
Oh, no question. Like, especially during the rut and the doe's in heat, and she feels safe to run around in that spot, or it's a food plot or a food area of some kind, or it's a cover. Most of the time, that's either a food or cover area. Where there's a billion tracks, it's one or the other, food or cover. And especially during the rut and they're being chased, she feels safe to run around in there. It might be a spot also that's a little bit less accessible to people, or less trafficked by people. That's the other thing.
Rut also with no snow. That's a good place because you
Yeah.
can also just kind of walk in the woods, but then you sit down. And then when you get bored, you go for another walk.
And any odd buck that happens to be coming through, he's going to be walking through that barnyard, right? The barnyard has so much scent in it, and he's just looking for deer. He's more likely, the odd deer that comes from somewhere else and he got chased off and he suddenly showed up in your woods, he's going to go through them high traffic areas.
Exactly.
He's at least going to go on the downwind side of it. If you're going to put your stand at the barnyard, keep it on the downwind side of it, because the big buck's going to do the same thing. He's going to scent check a section of woods by the drift, right? If you have a big long section of woods and the wind is blowing left to right, well, he's going to go right down the right side of it, and he doesn't have to go in those woods because the wind's coming across them. He can scent the whole
Thanks for
chunk of
coming, guys.
woods and
Thanks,
check.
fellas. Have a great night. Good luck out
Appreciate
there.
it.
Good luck out there.
Yep.
We'll see you guys this fall.
Oh, yeah. Good luck.
Right.
That has worked good for me. If a buck is going crosswind for a long direction, and then all of a sudden turns upwind, he smells something up there, right? Something's going on. Or he ran into somebody, it comes back and then hooks off. If it goes out and the track turns around, comes back on itself and then turns out, something's going on there too. There's something up ahead he didn't like. He ran into a person or a moose. Or in Maine, a lot of times they'll come to a moose and then go whoa, and then run off and go around them.
Any more questions?
Anything you guys are wondering? Yeah, go ahead, man.
So you talk a lot about being able to differentiate a doe from a buck track. What?
Yep.
Go into more detail about that. Is it just size, or is it like?
Well, it's a lot of attitude. Sam, come here.
Please.
For a demonstration.
Ryan?
No. So there's a little bit. Obviously, I'm heavier than her. I'm bigger than her. But most of the time, if you just stand comfortably, you can see something about us automatically. And the difference is the width of our stance. Between a buck and a doe, like if Sam takes off walking, go ahead and just walk normal. If you could see her tracks, they're skinnier this way.
Narrower.
Because of the way that she stands, when she walks, her feet come closer together. But when I walk, a lot of guys have a tendency to even throw their legs out a little bit, especially if they're big, heavy, strong guys. You have a little bit of swagger in your step. You're wider, and you're just kind of bigger. So there's that as well. But also one of the ways that you can tell a buck versus a doe is they check tracks way more often. Bucks will check tracks more.
Yeah. Does rarely check tracks, and they definitely don't check tracks for any distance. Not usually. They might walk down them, but it's.
Yeah, you don't.
When a deer's got its head down and it's smelling, especially a bigger buck, and he's got a wide chest. Remember Lanny Benoit, one of his movies, when his hat's a little bit ripped? I can't remember which one it is. Maybe Smarter, Not Harder or something. And he's standing there, and there's this big, huge buck that's run down the dirt. And you can see the buck is taking regular steps, and then all of a sudden the buck puts his head down. Now when his head comes down, his front legs will do this a little bit.
When you lower your center of gravity,
you can see that
you have
buck
to
walking
widen
and
up
putting
and
his nose down and going like this, and it's and then back up and it's normal, and then boom, down the road. You can tell that buck put his nose down as he went down that road just by looking at the track. I followed Casey down the road in the wintertime with a half-inch of snow, right? And he's walking in front of me towards the house, and I'm just watching him, and I'm watching what he does compared to what his track does. And he looks to the left and looks to the right, and you can see it in the snow.
Because as soon as when I'm walking down the road and I look this way, that changes my center of gravity just a little bit, and my body automatically compensates, and then this foot turns out just a little tiny bit.
It's a little slight difference, but when you look down the line of it, you can notice it. When you look at multiple tracks down a long line, you can see those little changes in it, provided there's not too much, junk on the ground. And then of course you have horn marks in the snow.
Yep.
That's a guarantee. You got a buck, The urine, most of the bucks will stop and just one little hole. He'll just stand there
and it'll trail, right?
Then when
how many times you shake it, right? There's always a drop or two that comes out at the end. When does pees, it's legs spread apart, splash, and walk. Buck stands there and just goes, and then it's like this dribble freaking mess, and it gets on his legs and right.
Yeah, and you'll see little small drops over a long, over sometimes 15, 20 yards.
Yep.
You'll see a little bit.
The other,
All of
shape.
them have tarsals, so
Yep.
like a tarsal smell in the bed may or may not. Buck usually tend to have a lot stronger tarsal bit. If it rubs its horns on a tree,
Yep.
Makes it straight.
right? Makes it straight, yeah.
Doe
then
also,
they guarantee buck.
doe
then-
also tend to have a rounder foot. Like one of the things you notice is they're a little bit more heart-shaped, right?
Yeah.
The toes come in, they're a little bit smaller, and they kind of shape like this, and bucks will have a little bit more of a point to them. The toes are longer, they stick out, and they'll spread out a little bit more, they'll be a little bit better of a gap. And they also tend to walk on their heels a little bit more. Especially like Mushbuck, one of the things that he did a lot was he would drag his feet, right? Just kind of like big going, I got 1,000,000 miles to go, I've already done 1,000,000, right? And they'll do this a little bit, they won't pick their feet up all that much, and it'll be kind of a pointier track. And does do this, and you lift up. And if you find a doe that's dragging, it's either because the snow is really deep compared to how tall they are,
Or she's a big
right?
girl.
Or she's a big girl and hard, right? She's got a big, it's hard to pick all that leg up.
Keith Gallant, the game warden there from Braintree, the guy can track a flea across carpet. I mean,
Yeah, he's
I've followed
awesome.
him through the woods quite a bit. We're up in Maine, and this big giant doe goes up the hill. Now it's a pretty nice track, 160 pounds or so. And I'm like, well, it's the only thing in town, and he's already on it, and I'm coming up the hill behind him. So I just get on him, tracking the other deer, and I'm just steaming along. And he comes to a bed, and it's a pretty good sized bed. I'm pretty impressed with it, but it's kind of rounded. They tend to like curl up in a ball and boom. Where a big old buck will lay out, he'll spread out. He takes up space. It's kind of a ballish shape, but it's pretty big, and I'm fairly impressed with it. And then right in the front corner of it, there's this splash, and it's about 5 inches around. And she stands up and stretches, and then steps ahead a little bit, and then up the bank she goes. No dribbling at all. He follows it up the hill, and I'm saying, doe, and he's on this giant doe, right? So he's going up the hill, and I'm going along, and he gets to the top of the hill, and he bears off the doe. And I said, oh, he must have seen it, right? He must have saw the bald head. And he bears off and keeps going, and I bear off in between the two. The doe goes this way, he goes that way on the mountain, I go straight up over the top, and I break out the other side into a clear cut. She's gone a hook and come right around and laid down in between me and him now. So I come up over the top, and she's done one of these, and she's over here now. So I turn and I start into it a little bit, she's right there. She comes running out of there, and of course up comes the gun, this huge deer, right? Poof, right off like that, and I'm pretty sure, and I get right to here, put my gun back down, right, and she down the hill, and I'm like, wow, she's a big girl, you know, just a big beauty. Well, I don't go 150 yards farther, and he's right over there, and we go boom, right into each other. And I said, so what do you think of her? And he says, wasn't that thing huge? And he says, I thought it was buck right up until I saw a flat head. And he missed that splash in the corner of the bed, you know, and that's one of the things, that's usually a pretty good gig.
Sometimes you see a little blood in the does if they're.
Yeah,
Right.
once in a while.
Closer-
Yeah.
closer-
If that's
closer to the
across
rut,
yeah, that like week before they come in to heat. Yeah, like on the 15th. Most of the time that's like the 13th to the 15th, where you'll get that a little bit, and then the actual breeding is usually in Vermont. Nick Fortin's got a beautiful graph showing, and they've been measuring fawns from roadkill does. They have a plastic tape, and they lay it right on the tailgate, right on top of that, and it has the dates for the conception of that fawn, and you set the forehead right against it, and you stretch it out, and it tells you about when it was. And the vast majority of it is the 20th to the 23rd is like peak rut in Vermont. Almost every year, like clockwork. And it's a huge peak with a tailing off, you know, it's like one big arch. And the second rut is just this little tiny bump. It's like a fifth or an eighth of the size of the main breed. So nearly everything, almost all of our does is right in November. Right in the 20th.
One of the things that sets tracking out, we gotta touch on this real quick because we literally get this constantly, is gear and is clothing. Tracking, you're moving, this also like still hunting if you're just covering some distance in the woods. It's not like sitting. And when you sit, it's easy to get cold and it's easy to get wet, but you also, you know, you pack on a little bit more in order to keep you warm. When you're tracking, layers, like we always do like multiple layers. Like I'll wear 2-3 shirts, and then I'll wear this as a beagle coat. This is like the best coat ever. Fortunately, you can't get these anymore, but the reason why it's so great is because it's wool. Obviously, it's got a wool outer layer. The inside has this little like breathable mesh that kind of like helps get moisture out from in your body, and of course zipper too. All that. It's got, I carry a ton of gear, but yeah, we have a pouch in the back. So being able to have things behind you, one of the things that none of us are super big on is backpacks. Like we're actually going to Colorado in October, right? We're going to elk hunt, it's gonna be awesome. And for that you need a backpack because we're tenting and stuff. But for normal hunting and all that, find a coat with a little, you know, some pockets, whatever medicine, whatever stuff that you need to take in the woods with you. Make sure you can just have that fit in your coat. If you can, you don't have to have this other thing that's weighing on your shoulders. It makes it super easy.
A fanny pack works good too
Yep.
if you don't
like
want a backpack.
Cocoa Puff keeps a little pack hooked to his belt with like some rounds and some other things like that as well.
Survival gear.
Yep, and it's like something light and something with layers makes tracking so much easier, because when you have like a big heavy coat, or if it's something loud, like when you're moving in the woods and you hear a lot of these guys have like the coats that go whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. You need something that's quiet, especially when you're going through the brush, because like in New England, it's like this, like not necessarily Vermont, but it's like this, it's thick, and when you're sliding through, if you have something that makes a lot of noise, it can give you away pretty well, especially when you're getting real close.
You know, lessens what you can hear.
Right, because all you hear is
yeah, and you're constantly listening to yourself. So gear, make sure you have a good coat, make sure you have all your stuff with you, because you know it doesn't take long and you're a long ways away from the truck. Like you may not be that far, but it's a long way. You know, you gotta do this and you gotta go like that. And if you're following Casey, you gotta crouch under everything. And you're tucking
Goes
through all
under
this.
everything.
And if you're crossing water and all that stuff, you make sure that your gear is super important. You want something light, something durable, something quiet, and make sure you have everything with you. And when you're tracking, the buck could go 4 miles and you might not get home. You might be out there, right? There's only one way to get out of the woods. You have to come back out. You gotta walk out, right? Especially when you start getting in remote areas, like you're like, hey, we're going to Maine, right? We're going to the Adirondacks, right? Big chunks of land. You're going out. You need to have all your stuff and be ready to stay overnight as well.
So the only way you're gonna get a ride is if you can't walk.
And you don't want
literally.
You out here, buddy? Thank you so much. Have a great night. He's like, I'm tired. Just sitting here in this rugged chair listening to you guys blabber on.
Just starting out, you can't just go into the big woods and just be like, hey, I'm gonna go try it out. I've never done this before.
Thanks for coming.
Have a good night, man.
You gotta go take it easy and build up to it. Dad didn't let us just go over to Maine with him. I'm just like, you're not ready yet. You're not ready yet, basically. And so that's just and playing around. Also, this is why this is so important, because it's not just the knowledge that you get, but it's also the connections you can make. Because hey, somebody else in my town's here, and now let's go and practice together and ask the questions and. Yeah.
You know, practice building fires. Practice myself. I keep a big plastic bag with me. I want a big, huge, like a 6-foot construction bag. I like it all folded up and as small as I can. Get it all nice and neat and folded and brand new, and keep it tight. I'll even put a little electrical tape around it so that I have some electrical tape with me while I'm hunting and stuff. If all of a sudden I need something like that. And that trash bag will be like an instant shelter if you were to like fall down or break your leg or hurt your arm or dislocate something or get real bad hurt, or say you're lost and you don't want to go anymore. You're just done. Take that 6-foot plastic bag, you take that thing upside down and you cut out a corner of it so that it'll fit over your face, and you can literally sit down in the woods. And it can rain all night and you'll be warm inside there. It's like an instant shelter. And you've got it with you. Because most of the time, if you have to spend the night in the woods, it's because you're hurt. And if you fall out of your tree stand or you cut yourself bad or anything that just got lost.
Going across the river.
That's right. Yep. So having that plastic bag is so nice. Mine is fluorescent orange. So that works as rescue too. So good. That is just so nice. And if you got a pair of them, you've got instant waders. Go right across the river and stay dry. They're slippery, but it'll get the job done and it'll keep you dry. And in a certain situation, it could really save your life. And you'll never build a shelter and all that other stuff. Stay warm.
It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, that is. It'd be great, but no, it's not going to keep you warm.
No.
But for the most part,
it's super fun. There's really nothing
just gotta
to
do
it. And it's like when you're tracking, all you're doing is you're following it, pay attention, walk up and shoot them. That's literally all it is. Instead of, you know, we're kind of impatient. That's why tracking is so much fun. You get to see more woods, and instead of waiting for them to make it happen, you go get it done, right? If you're sitting in a stand or you're in a blind or whatever, you're really dependent on the deer making choices to come to you. But if you're following them, doesn't matter where they go, you can still get them, right? It offers a big advantage, a big advantage, because now you're also learning about the woods. You get tracking is how you get the most amount of data while you're hunting, right? Because like if you're using cameras and stuff, that's all well and good, but you're not using cameras when you're in the woods.
the other thing tracking did for me though was it taught me how much room a deer needs. Deer use a lot of land, a lot of land. People will be on 100 acres and think, oh, this buck lives here and he spends all his time here.
Yeah.
No, not even close. Then things use horrendous areas. Easily 16 miles. I've been 16 miles on a GPS with one deer. That's a long ways. And then the following night, that bugger's back. Take right off and go, and way out around. And then a day and a half later, he's back. And then, you know, with them having the ability to shoot up a 3,000 footer in a couple minutes, shoot right up a mountain in a couple minutes and go right to the top of it just like that. Imagine how far you'd go in a whole night of being motivated, just walking. You know, a deer from Roxbury could be over here and then in Montpelier by morning. And then over through and, you know, almost to Middlesex and then right back down to Roxbury the following day. I mean, they can go a long, long way. And a lot of us don't realize how far. And some individuals are homebodies, some of them roam like crazy, and some of them roamers will take you on some big trips.
Yep. Any more questions?
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for sitting here.
One more
Oh,
question.
no, okay, dude. Yeah.
Just a quick one.
Yeah.
When it comes to places you guys hunt outside of Vermont, why do you prefer Maine over something like the Adirondacks or things like that? Is it just happenstance, or is it better hunting out there?
Well, for me, I want snow. And in snow, for snow, the Adirondacks sometimes. Mount Washington is usually the first place in New England to get snow. They're the highest elevation. You know, that it shows up there and in Pittsburgh, New Hampshire, and Rangeley. Those are the first three places to get snow normally. If we get like even that 35 degrees, 37 degrees with rain here, there's snow up there.
Yep.
Those are the first places to hit snow. And it's mostly because they're far enough north, they're high enough in elevation, and they're lined up with the Quebec plain. See, as soon as you go above the border, it's a plain like Quebec is flat. So the air comes across Quebec and hits pretty much all the Plinnies in Lancaster, all the way up through to Rump Mountain in Pittsburgh. There are lifts right there, and it does the first snow dumping in that mountain range. Then it moves over, it drops into the Zistahos Valley, and the air moves across and gets to the Kennebagos, which is where we are, the Kennebago Mountains. That area there gets hit pretty good because it's a second mountain range. So the first mountain range gets whaled with some snow, the second one gets even more, and it just dumps it right in there. And we're way more apt to have snow there than even northern Maine.
We also have more
times
space.
Allagash doesn't have snow, and we.
So for the style of hunting we do, we cover a lot of ground, and we want to cover a lot of ground. We don't want to run into posters. We don't want to have to keep crossing blacktop. We don't want to have to go through somebody's yard, right? And you know, these giant sections of paper company land, it's nothing but logging roads and trees and mountains go ahead as far as you can see. And it's like, and that's just kind of like, want to get away, want to get out there, want to get into the big woods, and I think that's a significant reason.
The Adirondacks are even bigger,
Yep.
but there's no access. It's
Yep.
like there's basically this wall, and it's like in order to get farther back there, you gotta do a long
You gotta go
walk.
a long ways.
With up in Maine, there's roads everywhere, which is so nice. So that way, it makes everything that much smaller because then you can utilize basically the vehicles to help you do your scouting. That's why the road work, but you can do road work there, but when you're in the Adirondacks, you do feet.
It's going to be leg work.
It's leg work instead.
I don't think you're logging in the Adirondacks.
No, not as much.
No,
The forest is totally different forest, but we've seen some giant deer come out of the Adirondacks.
Yo, sure. And a lot of times I think maybe even the genetics are a little better for antlers. I think if you wanted to get a really nice, big, really good, beautiful racks, on like 170, 80-pound deer.
New
Or the
Hampshire.
Adirondacks or New
Adirondacks.
Hampshire is a place to go,
Yeah.
ain't no question. And
Maine's for bodies. Maine just produces heavy deer, big heavy
and
deer.
the biggest, heaviest
all the
deer
time.
come from the deepest snow. Wherever the snow is deep and it's cold, snow and cold makes big deer. Little deer don't survive in it.
Survive, you know.
Yeah,
That's right.
literally.
Yep.
Yep.
And that little 106-pound doe from Barry Town down here, she's not going to have a 200-pound linebacker son. She's only 100 pounds as an adult.
Breeding with a 150-pound buck.
Right. Yeah. I mean, our average in Vermont for a 4-year-old buck is 171 to 174 pounds. It's right in the low 170s, a 4-year-old buck in Vermont. Where our Casey's 4-pointer right there.
That was 211.
That was 211. It was a 2-year-old.
Yeah, and the one right on the edge of the door, there's a picture right above that bear rug hanging there. That's a 2-year-old deer and it weighed 222. Same spot. Right? They're just big. Like not much for racks. Genetics are kind of like tall and skinny. But it's
But
like
they're young too.
But you get young deer and they're big body deer. And it's like that's one of the things like we chase bigger deer more than we chase buck.
So do you give up when it gets deep enough for snowshoes, or?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
just like, we're better off to stay mobile and migrate with the snow to the right depth.
Because
No.
by the time we need snowshoes up in April, the deer are yarding up.
Oh, yeah.
Even during deer
Yeah.
season.
Yeah, and not that can't work. I mean, Pittsburgh really did a job on their deer this last season because they had lots of them coming into the yards, and the snow came kind of quickly, and everybody was kind of still there, and they just walked out those yard woods a little bit, and they shot some beautiful buck. The one right next to the front door there, in between the door and the window, that's a Pittsburgh deer from this last season. And same thing, coming into the yards, and Jason Fielder there, that was a beautiful buck. So you're going to have that a little bit, you know. But it's rare. Of the 25 years I've been going to Maine, like 3 seasons maybe where we were driven out because the snow was so deep. And this was number 3, this last one. A couple times there with you and Jimmy, and you guys were snow plowing up rock
Pittsburgh.
Right, that was
with your Jeep. And
Yeah.
that was what, 10, 15 years ago?
Oh, yeah.
10 years ago
Yeah.
probably. You
Yeah,
know?
that's
So
what
it's
was
not
thinking.
real often that it's right up to your knees or more. That's not, and it's tough. We even these kangaroos can only last 3, 4 hours, 5 hours in that knee deep stuff if it's fluffy. If there's like a crust on it, your knees and everything starts hitting, and they can hear you coming to boo, and they just boom, boom, boom a little bit, and you're an hour and a half trying to make it 300 yards. Just too much.
Yep.
Yeah, it's too much. But for the most part, that's a pretty rare thing. And at that point, us being just renting a camp and then just being able to drive, and we have quite a range that we can drive, and Maine being so open, and anybody can just go. I like that. I like the fact that anybody can go and hunt where we hunt. That's unique for me. The biggest challenge of all for me would be to hunt deer that everybody else tried to get and couldn't get them. Like you get that one buck that everybody else just couldn't get, like Mr. Rogers, right? Everybody's trying to get that deer. And for me to go there and get it is a good feeling. And there was no one saying you got to stay out of here and oh you can only shoot this deer. You can only just going and being able to walk as far as the eye can see and just go where I want. I just love that. I don't care if there's only one deer left in me. I want to go anyway. I like that wilderness, wild, open, just go feeling. And New England doesn't know the treasure that it has in it. And most of America doesn't understand it either. They don't know that this is just.
Most of them don't know what trees look like, let alone wilderness.
Oh, sure. There's that kind of openness that I love. I like to be able to just do as I please and go. And you can't do that everywhere. And there's some places you don't want to do this type of hunting.
No, it won't work.
You're gonna get some people upset. You're gonna
piss
chase
some
all
people
their
off.
deer away. You're gonna educate all their deer. You keep following a buck day after day after day. He's gonna be one smart bugger in the 2 weeks. Every trick you try to pull on him, after a while, he's gonna be wise and he ain't gonna let up and he's gonna really have to go. And if you educate all your deer that way, well, pretty quick, you won't be able to get anywhere near them. They're gonna be wild. They're wild. And Pittsburgh is a tough place to start learning how to track. Because of that snow that we were talking about, that snow is there. And everyone runs to that, especially Vermonters love to go to Pittsburgh and hunt it. So it gets hunted pretty hard. And then deer are wise. one little twig and they're 100 yards behind a tree running like crazy. They don't miss a trick. So it makes it a tough place to hunt, especially for the older animals that have been tracked a lot. The younger ones, there's always a few of the younger ones that are a little easier to get.
Will you stay within like 3 hours of your camp, or you go farther?
Most of the time, yeah, within 3 hours. It depends on the kind of roads. Because if you go back towards New Hampshire quite a ways and you take all the dirt roads, well, it doesn't take long you're not traveling very fast.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden you're
you won't
2 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah, you won't be a long ways away, but you're a long time away.
Right, it's hell roads too. It's like boom, 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 and then go a little ways.
Washboardy, bumpy, freaking, beat you up kind of roads.
Yeah, you gotta, carry the chainsaw in the truck because if the wind blows a tree across the road, you've got to clear it out. You'll be there forever if you don't. That kind of woods. I mean, it's not so far back that nobody can go there, but
Seems like 3 hours is the distance everybody from Jackman, even Allagash, or if you go to Rockwood, wherever your station's, like a 3 hour
max.
We're always trying to figure out what I'm trying to figure out is, okay, I got hunters, like you're down in Eustis, it sounds like you're in 27, you're heading back way to Jackman.
Sure.
King Mountain territory, maybe, whatever.
Right.
It's usually 2 or 3 hours any which way.
Yeah.
And I've had discussions with Hal Blood, and he's like 2 to 3 hours. He tries to find places where no one else, that's why he's got the big tires. He tries to find places just where nobody's bothering the deer.
Right.
And, because now, tracking and the education from the Benoits to
everybody
you
doing
guys,
it.
the Adirondack boys, the Maine, there's so much stuff out there. Every year it's like, game on, and you're, whoa, where'd he coming from?
Right.
Oh yeah.
And so your tracking game has to get better, basically.
Exactly.
Your ability to read the tracks
This
has
is
to be that much
we're
better.
in a new era right now because there's so much stuff out there.
Right.
And you guys are doing a fantastic job, and you've given out some awesome information for the people who don't have years in this. They can pick up, and if they are serious, pick up and take some of this, and within a couple of years, they can start producing.
Easily.
Oh yeah.
The amount
kill the biggest bucks they've ever questioned.
Yeah, it's
and
crazy.
Because there's like a deficit that's happening in hunting, and the average hunter's age is 55, right? Me and Hal, right? That kind of, at that age guy, and maybe his kids, might hunt. That pretty soon the hunter wave is going to really start descending, and it's already on the downhill slide right now. And even in Vermont, we've gone from 120 odd-ish, down to 68, and the department's thinking, well, we might even hit 40 in 10 years. So as that starts dumping off, you've got to find some way of keeping people interested and getting them to go. And not necessarily that, the deer are so plentiful in Maine that they need shooting, because that's really, we can't go on that. But the skills and the outdoorsmanship and the allure of it and the satisfaction of it is so nice. And what it makes of you is so important.
The barrier of entry.
There's also a competitive side to hunting.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's a competitive side that can get in the way. And if you feel pressured by other people and they're bringing you down in your hunting and it's competitive, that's not good. It really isn't, because pretty quick somebody's mad because somebody did over here and that. And that's not why you hunt. It's not about the deer. It's about you. It's a story. You and everything that happens to you and what you become.
Your son said exactly. You got to go out in the woods and just enjoy the day. You said most of the time, even the bucks I've gotten, it's like, are you kidding me? This thing's like walking right to me.
Oh yeah.
And they go out there, I'm gonna get this. I am, and it's like nothing.
Yeah.
But it all comes back to what you have internally to offer yourself to take in from the woods for the day. When you go into the big woods, you're like mile marker 15. You're 15 miles out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh yeah.
And you want to go left or right in any direction. You go for an hour. You are. If nobody knows, I'd hunt for myself a lot. I shouldn't.
Oh yeah.
I can't get people. Finally, I got this gentleman who comes. He's crazy enough to say, "Okay, I'll go with you."
Yeah.
I'm dragged up to Maine because I will go up there and just have a fantastic time if I see a deer or not.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yep.
And people don't understand.
If your rig breaks out there, you ain't walking out that night. You'll be mourning before you get to the end of the road.
The truck I just bought is to sleep in, just in case something happens. We're gonna sleep in it.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
But when you add that, or like you subtract that competitive mindset, now it frees you up. That's the thing about us, is we're like free from it. Like, and if we can go into a crowd and shoot that big one and get it on film, like how do you make it any harder? I mean, you'd have to pick up a bowl. That would be the only thing that would probably make it harder. And that filming has made it so much more pleasant. And we have so much more out of it. And I think someday hunting may go by the wayside.
It will, for sure.
Predation, even on fellow humans, should go by the wayside. It really should. Human beings should be above that. And hunting very well may be turning into the filming. And with any luck, beauty will save the world. Right?
Yeah.
And think of how many beautiful things you've seen just because of hunting, and you've experienced some things, and no one else that ever would never know that.
Try to
beautiful
explain
movie.
the millennials, next generation is, you gotta enjoy yourself out there in northern Maine. You know, I'm just gonna pick that one spot, or middle of the Adirondacks, 2 days in, whatever.
Sure.
You gotta enjoy yourself out there, and then deer is secondary.
Oh yeah.
If you're gonna try to get your numbers or play your game or pick competition, you're not gonna last more than a year or two up there.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
No, that's what's burning our whole planet.
Yeah.
We're burning our planet for the awe feeling. Now, if your awe feeling takes away from something else or someone else, that's an issue. That really is. I'm standing at the register, right? I'm at the Pine, I'm standing at the register, and the guy said, "Where'd you shoot your deer?" Right? It's out on the truck out there, and he just says to me, and I'm like, "Well, shot it out to him." And the logger, right? He says, "Why
Don't
are
give
you
your
telling
spot
him?
up."
The deer's dead."
He ain't gonna kill it. It's in the back of the truck, dude.
Yeah, doesn't matter. It's because that's.
And I don't have any secrets. I really don't have any secrets. I don't need millions of people helping me, you know, right? But by the same token, I don't want to take away from any of their own experience unfolding for them. It's important that you let things happen the way they should. And some of those mistakes that people make, they have to learn. That's their process, and you don't want to mess with it. I don't want to mess with it. But also, too, you want to enhance. Like he says, amplify. He eats that deer. Now that deer on the mountain was just a deer. But as soon as he eats that deer becomes a lot more.
Yep.
Right? And if all of us, life feeds on life, everybody out there is eating, everybody's eating a piece of life every day, that's just a normal thing. Let's all get used to it. Some pay to have somebody else kill it for them. You know, either way, it's the same thing. And in the end, if I fit somehow, it matters. So I go out and take care of my trees, and the deer eat my trees, and they do well because I took care of what made the deer do well, and then I go and collect my deer tax, right? And now I eat the deer, and we've got a circle going. I take care of the trees, the deer, and we're good. And it works. And human beings are gonna have to find what works. And we're gonna have to find what works with the oceans. We're gonna have to find what works with our population, with how many bears we're willing to put up with in Vermont. You know, we're going to have to find out what works in all aspects of life. And the competitive mindset is really the caveman thing. It really is. Because in the end, how many deer do you need to shoot before you've had enough? Right? If I went out every day, I always say the necktie thing, right? If I went out every day and I had 100,000 neckties in my house, and every day I got out of bed and I get out my phone and I check my trail camera on the necktie factory and I check to see how many neckties came out today. And then I try and figure out how I'm going to make money to go buy more neckties to pile them up. You'd call me crazy. And the guy who says, well, hunting season just ended and we got 364 days to go before you get back to hunting again. That's a little crazy, right? A little obsessed. What's the difference at that point? You mow your lawn to go, right? The only reason you cut it, just so you can go, oh, I got that done. Oh, I feel better. If we just want to take all the time.
There's a lot of good analogies, but there's nothing like being up in northern woods anywhere where you're away from human influences and you can just do your own thing, right, wrong, or indifferent. Everybody does it different. Every day is different. Every deer is different. Yep. You know, and when it happens for you, it's a great thing, but it's the journey.
It's refreshing interacting with something other than human intelligence.
Yes, that's the key right there.
Yep.
And when you master that, Now that is good enough. Deer aren't good enough for me anymore. Personally, they're a piece of cake. I don't need to study them anymore. They've been studied to death, and we got it down. And killing a deer is not a big deal.
Now it's time to film us doing it.
And
It is.
eventually,
It's so much harder.
Eventually, even that filming thing is gonna like go for me. Eventually, I'm gonna outgrow deer. I'm gonna outgrow them. I don't need them anymore. Don't need to shoot them anymore. If I want to eat one, I'll certainly eat one. But I don't really have to. There was a day when I had to. I've outlived that a little bit, and someday I may not have to hunt anymore. I very well should expect to get to that. The next thing, once you've studied nature, and human beings have studied nature to death, what's next? People.
Come bass fishing with me.
I've done that. I don't even fish anymore. They've been in tournaments. He's been to the state finals. We bass fished all there is to fish.
I
And
figured above ground, below ground.
Oh yeah.
yeah, and played all those games too. And then there comes a point where, like, even that. So now I'm like, well, let's study people. I'm at people now, right? Nature is kind of the study when you're a child. When you become an adult, it's time to study people. You know, what makes that person, each one of them, beautiful? And each one of them developing and doing and going, and the possibilities. Human beings' possibilities are like endless. And a deer can only be a deer. That's all they can be. He can't be any more than the great big beautiful buck. He can't be any more than that. But people can. And there's a different part I'm interested in now. Now I'm all about people. And every one of them, when you understand yourself well, no problem. It's easy. And now, geez, everything flows.
Well,
you're centered.
You're doing a great service to the people who don't have that confidence yet.
Right. Build it up to now.
Yeah, you're doing a
Right.
great
But
service.
it'll come.
Yeah.
And as long as they feel like it'll come, yeah, we're all good to go.
Is there any final questions?
Thank you guys so much.
You
Really
bet.
appreciate
Glad
you
you
guys
came.
coming. It was awesome.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, use us as a resource.
coming, guys.
Let us know if you need anything, if you have any questions, download it. Take it. Have fun. Safe guys.
Thank you very much. We're trying.
The cat talked about his product development.
This is just the first couple videos you guys had. You guys share on everything. You guys were like, walk up something to make mounts or whatever.
Appreciate it.
Reach out to you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, check this out.
And got time for a question. This is about trust.
Thanks for coming. Just kind of get in. Yeah, thanks a lot for doing this.
Good chat. Anytime. Thank you guys. Have a safe drive home.
People.
Oh, yeah. We know nothing.
People of the world. Oh my God. 233 minutes. You poor people. Let me get you out of this thing. We got you all hooked up. Oh, don't worry, Beeb. It ain't going nowhere. You're free. Now this is our familiar format. Thanks for being here, guys. Thanks for putting up. It's definitely way longer than. Somebody said stay with Trump. A lot of people sound like hippies and liberal stuff. LOL. Oh, that's funny.
Oh, like 9. We actually got done earlier.
That's funny. Yeah, we are done. Guys, thank you so much. Any closing thoughts? This is Beaver, for those of you who don't know.
Yeah,
Any closing thoughts, Beaver?
Impact is the name of it.
Thanks for joining in, and you guys actually got to see if I came.
You did. In case you were wondering. Say goodnight. Hey, you're on YouTube. Say hi. He came. What? Huh?
Special thanks to Mr. Lagerstead for showing up with all that nice food, drink.
Yep. Thank you, Nicole at Fish and Wildlife, Vermont. Appreciate you.
It was
Casey,
good.
any
It was
final
great.
words?
Get out there, happy hunting, and put some pictures of your guys' deer if you guys get one.
Yeah, dude. If you guys get anything, tag us on Instagram, all that jazz. Hey, look, everybody, it's Jared Dog. Remember? Oh, that's what he did in the other video when we got snow there. Everybody, this is Brian.
How we doing?
This is the Z-Man. Find him on Facebook. Cocoa Puff.
How you doing?
How you doing? He doesn't like talking much. He'll talk like this. He likes this. We gotta get you out of here. We gotta get you out of your shell, dude. We gotta get you out of your shell.
I had no idea we were
What are people saying? The old bow hunt. Not that much, but we need to do more of it.
That thing works pretty good.
What else we got? Hello, Taylor. Hello, Kaylee. Are you Kaylee though? Are you?
You look good the whole time.
What else we got? Any questions that we missed, guys? If there's anything else you're wondering real quick before we hang up, if we missed anybody, yeah, let me get this in a better grip position here. Let us know. I'm doing this on an iPad. It's not that great. Oh, guys, say hi to Teresa. Say thank you, Teresa.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Teresa. Love you. Love your face. Says goodbye, Captain Jelly Donuts. That's funny.
It's 10 o'clock,
Uh,
so we
in
actually
the
got done with a decent time.
caliber. Problem is, the hammer.
Say goodnight.
It's-
Good night, everybody.
the Primer on, I have to take pliers again.
Goodbye. Goodbye, Coco.
See you later.
Goodbye. Good night, everybody.
Happy hunting.
Good
See.
night.
Thanks for being here, people. We appreciate you. Good night. I don't know.
Yeah, I've had pretty good luck. Teresa had a 45, and that thing shot pretty good.
They claim it's a